Shalom, everybody. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect this message. Amen. Thank you for being on. We appreciate your presence today. Those who are watching live, those who will watch this later on, no matter what your belief system is, we're thankful and grateful for you all. And thank you for spending some time with us as always. For the brothers who showed up for our men's fellowship yesterday evening, proud of you brothers, thankful for you brothers, doing great things out here, pursuing the promises of the Most High, and showing love and the excitement for us getting together. It was incredible. So I just want to say thank you to you guys as well. Once again, we give all honor to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim, for what He's doing. We give all honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. We're thankful and grateful for all of you who are taking time out of your busy schedule to continue to support in any way, shape, or form. Even just showing up, you're supporting. If you share, though, if you join the community, if you make it a point to, share, join the community, give a gift, something like that, whatever the case might be, give a like, etc. We're thankful and grateful to you for doing so in advance. And thank you for spending some time with us, trying to get everybody else uploaded on all these different platforms so we can get going. Shalom to everybody coming on. I think I saw Austral. I think I saw TikTok.com/ I can't remember what the full name is, pop up at the corner of my eye. Thank you all for being on. I think Minister Tamara, I saw you come on as one of the first ones on. And I'll try to scroll through those in a minute. But we're on part 18 today. Right, and this is a series that we are doing. It's called Having Been Led as We Believe, and it's legit. Having Been Led as We Believe is, that's the title of the series. It's a great series, and it's a great reminder for us. This is not about making sure that everybody has to believe every single thing that we say. That's not what the point of this is. The point of this is not to say that if you don't believe what we say, that you are inherently evil and you must go to hell. Right? This is not something to make sure that everybody is going to agree with every single thing that we say. We're not here to look for full agreement in this. We are careful to make sure that we comprehend and remember and understand that not everybody is going to receive this and receive any of these messages. Matter of fact, we comprehend that many people will not take time out to simply just go on YouTube, on Instagram, on the podcast, etc., and be able to just look up what we're talking about so that you can see our position. And therefore, a lot of people are going to be arguing with us before they even know what we're talking about. It's okay. It comes with the territory, and we're all right with that coming with the territory. We're not upset by it. We're not frustrated by it. But we do ask as people come on that people be respectful, not just of me, but of others in the chat. Some people come on and have a lot to say of negative value, have a lot to say about, my appearance or whatever, if you don't agree with it and all that stuff. And we just ask that you be respectful of people. I'll especially say, please be respectful of my wife, because we have moderators who help out, and therefore I trust them to do a lot of great things, and I'm going to agree with them 99.9999% of the time. Matter of fact, 100% of the time. If there's any disagreement, we'll have that conversation offline. However, that's never happened because the people who moderate are people we trust and are like family to us, and they're going to make sure that they protect this environment so that we can continue to come on here. So if you do something that is harmful to somebody else, if you do something that can be considered to be nasty or, mean in some way, shape, or form, we will make sure that we, deal with it accordingly, just to let it be known. So Just want that to be known. And we don't want people to come on here having this whole thing of, oh, see, people come on here, they just block you because, no, I don't block. Well, first of all, if you're blocked, you can't come back on anyways. But if you're, if you get muted or something like that or whatever, and you come back on, why'd I get muted? It's probably because you did something that was disrespectful in some way, shape, or form. And it's not just about you. So we're asking you that you have to come out of yourself a little bit, right? And you have to be able to hear where somebody else is coming from, and you have to be able to respect it, just like we have to do with you all as well, which is why, once again, we don't mind anything that anybody's saying. We just ask that it be respectful. If you don't share our belief, it's not about forcing you into a belief or anything like that. It's just simply, once again, the series name is Having Been Led as We Believe. So we're going to talk about Deuteronomy 28. That's what I was led to today. I was telling you guys I didn't know when we were going to go there again, how appropriate it was to go there, especially since, we, have gone over it somewhat recently. But, in preparation phase, that's what the Most High said. So we're going to be obedient to the Most High. And thank you for those who've been suggesting it. So we're going to go to Deuteronomy 28. We're going to do some jumping around in it. I'm not sure how much of it, if we read the whole thing or whatever, because it's 68 verses long. So obviously we won't be able to hit every single thing in there. Nevertheless, if you would like to, read more about it, or if you have more questions, of course, you can always ask me offline and we can talk about it there. And I think pretty much we've got all our platforms up, ready to go. We are once again thankful to the Most High, and I'm thankful to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya. You can follow her at Bloom and Flourish on TikTok, YouTube, and her website. Not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, she's a herbalist, she's a chemist, she's a biologist by degree, by the way. And she has tinctures and even will do some consultations to be able to help you to be able to be healed and holy, and does so many different things for the diaspora behind the scenes that... I can just say I have extreme respect for what she does. All right. So we're thankful to everybody for being on. I think we have enough for everything that we're doing. And let's see. Oh, okay. This stuff is a little crazy. I'm sorry. I thought we were ready to go. This setup is so wild. What they have on Facebook through the MacBook to go live is like a whole ordeal. Hold on one second, you guys. I thought we had this together. Apparently I didn't. Okay. All right, now we got it together. That was weird. So we're going to go to Deuteronomy 28 if you want to go there already. And once again, this is part 18 of this series. We're going to focus on Deuteronomy 28 today. Okay, let's try this again. All right, and this is dealing with the curses. All right, there we go. We've got all the platforms on. So once again, if you're joining us on Facebook, we thank you for being on. If you're joining us on TikTok, so many places, TikTok, IG, the podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube later on, we're thankful and grateful to each and every one of you for being on. And we're thankful and grateful. Some of you are on platforms and I cannot answer your questions right now for whatever reason. But we will do our best to answer them, even if I have to answer them after the fact. Shalom to everybody. Thanks for being on. Thank you for your patience. Thank you once again to the brothers who showed up yesterday. Thank you to my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. We appreciate all of you, and thank you for your patience. All of those things being said, now we can get ready to get into Deuteronomy chapter 28 and discuss these curses. Deuteronomy 28 and discuss these curses, right? So, and all these different things that we're talking about. Um, well, I'm not a Christian, but if you feel you need to leave, is it Merrill Center or whatever? That's fine. Once again, this is haven't been led as we believe. So if you don't want to listen to what we believe, or you don't believe what we believe, you have every right to obviously not be in here. We'll be respectful. We just ask for respect back. All right. So we're talking about a different perspective, and we're talking about these Deuteronomy 28 curses. Now, everybody usually goes to Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28 is usually going to be something where we're going to talk about, some people talk about slavery is the focus. Some people are going to use it and say, well, we need to talk about it as far as what's going on with the black community. Some people are going to talk about it as far as colonization. And you wouldn't be wrong, actually, to make these links. All right. But once again, Deuteronomy 28 is kind of difficult to deal with for many people because of something we've been talking about over and over again, which is culture, right, and law. Deuteronomy 28 is going to be different. It's going to be difficult for a lot of people to talk about because we're dealing with two things. We're dealing with culture and we are dealing with law. Therefore, if you're somebody who has not been brought up in a certain culture or does not comprehend things from a certain cultural perspective, then it means that you are going to miss what we're talking about. Also, too, if you're not dealing with something from a certain lawful perspective, you're probably going to miss what we are talking about. When you're dealing with Deuteronomy 28, you have to deal with, once again, two things: culture and law, two things that were taken from you. So for example, one of the arguments that I have, not just from a Eurocentric point of view, if you want to go there, hey, agape, but even from a cultural perspective of Afrocentric people. First thing that I'm going to hear is, why are you going into the white man's Bible? Why are you doing this? It's like, well, do you not know your culture? Right? Well, that's not our culture. We didn't make that up. Well, who said anybody made it up? First, we believe that the Most High did. That's our belief system. Secondly, though, when you're talking about made up, well, why do you think we made it up? Well, you know that even if the white man, he went to Horus. That's the main one they go to, Horus, and that's where they got this Jesus from. I was like, well, I don't do Jesus, I do Yahshua. Well, what's the difference, brother? What's the difference? It's in our own community that argument goes on, right? So we have people that can't understand culture, and then it's like, okay, well, what if I tell you this is how culture works? What if I were to tell you that first and foremost, before we had this argument, you got to understand that Kemet stole from Cush. Like, you know this, right? You know, like Kemet weren't the first people to come up with Horus and Osiris. As a matter of fact, they didn't call it that, and Kemet stole it from them and then crossed out the names of those Netchers, because they'll still tell you God, they're gods, and that you're God, and God is a Germanic thing. That's a Germanic deity. That's dealing with false religiosity, whether you're talking about Israelite religiosity, biblical religiosity, whether you're talking about Kemetic religiosity. They don't worship gods, they worship Netchers. Gods are a whole different thing, right? But even in saying that, it's like, hey, do you comprehend that when you're talking about that, like, Kemet, first of all, stole from Cush, right? So if we're going to do this whole somebody stole from somebody thing, you got to know your culture enough to know what happened with the people that were there, right? Oh, no problem, Brother Coleman. It might have been my fault for not getting you the info too. I'm not sure. That's why I was asking people to kind of send me some stuff and let me know. At some point, I try my best, but we're gonna have to get some secretarial type of thing at some point. So we're praying for that at some point. Nevertheless, right? So it's culture. You got culture and all the stuff that's going on. Then after culture, with it, what happens, right? So after culture and Kemet, we have what was that? We were talking about. Oh yeah, in Kemet, you have to then think about the fact that Kemet has a story of Osiris and Horus, in which you actually have Osiris is supposed to be a deity, a male deity that gets killed and ripped into pieces, and Isis is supposed to be there for somebody who brings his body together, puts the obelisk on him. The obelisk is nothing more than like a dildo or a mock Venus. She puts the obelisk on him, right? The obelisk has sex with a dead man, whether you believe he was a zombie or whether you believe he was just laying there dead. That's people dealing in necrophilia. She has sex with that and then gets impregnated, right? And then after she gets impregnated, she gives birth to Horus. Now, what about that even sounds close? Just the birth and how things came into being. What sounds close to Yahshua, right? And a virgin birth a virgin birth by a regular woman and not a woman that was a goddess or a female nature. Right? What sounds close? But people will say, "Oh no, bro, you're just taking from the white man just stole from Kemet and stuff." It's like you don't even know what you're talking about. That's not, the stories aren't the same. Then we don't even need to get into the life they led. Horus is dealing with some stuff to where there's homosexuality involved, and his uncle tries to rape him, and some other things like that. Forgive me, I don't know if I can keep saying that word on the live. They want us to be careful with that word. So his uncle tries to force him to lay down with him. How about that? Right? And these are things that are right there, but people don't appreciate, don't recognize, and don't want to have true conversation about that. Right? They don't want to have real conversation about that. Right? So when you're saying that somebody stole something, once again, it's always cultural. A lot of people are just going to Kemet and just wear some braids or make sure that they have a certain style of clothing on, which, by the way, usually isn't even Kemetic. It's usually West African. So you don't even know Kemetic clothing or even Northeast African clothing versus West African clothing, right? But you'll just wear something, you'll say something, and you'll say and you'll just do something because somebody told it to you. You won't study this stuff, and your automatic assumption is that I'm taking on a culture that you haven't studied, that you haven't gone. So most of us are going to miss, just like they would miss something like that, just like they would miss George Washington. We talked about it, and plenty, so people can look that up when I'm talking about, where if you want to look up Washington, D.C. and the obelisk and Columbus on top of it and see and look at the parallels between Osiris and Isis and them telling the same story but whitewashing it. That's where your whitewash story goes. George Washington didn't believe in the Bible because George Washington was a deist. He believed that he could become a god or a deity himself and tried to take a nature story and make it his own. So that's what you need to worry about. But you see the Bible and you don't even think about the fact that black people, when they became free, started building churches and writing in Paleo Hebrew, that black natives, right, that had stuff in Paleo Hebrew, that it's across the Bering Strait in Paleo Hebrew, that in Africa today, you still have tribes on the East African side, all the way to the West African side, that continue to use scrolls that are thousands of years old, that have stuff burned into them so that nobody could rewrite what it says in those scrolls written in Paleo Hebrew. That's your people. Right? I'm Shwi, West African tribe, mixed into this stuff, right? A lot of people don't know. But because we don't know culture and we don't know law, it's going to be hard to deal with generational curses because we're so busy doing what Willie Lynch said. Willie Lynch studied generational curses too. We talked about the Willie Lynch series while we still weren't allowed to be live on TikTok yet. But those of you who were on with us, and if you ever want to go through that again, we're not going to be able to go through it on TikTok or YouTube because they try their best to, those series usually are series that get us where people start lying on us and get upset and get in their feelings and stuff. So we probably won't be able to do that on this platform. But if you guys want to do that at some point, maybe we'll do it on Patreon. Maybe we'll do it on like Zoom only. I don't know. But we'll find a way to get that conversation back in at some point down the road. However, when we talk about Willie Lynch, he tells you that he studied. And when you study Willie Lynch and you read Deuteronomy 28, you see what he studied. And he didn't believe that he didn't believe that wasn't your culture, and that if we take that culture away from you, then you won't be who you are. Everything he's talking about is Deuteronomy 28. And he told the people that showed up, George Washington's grandfather, right? Thomas Jefferson's great-grandfathers or grandfathers, right? These people that would have shown up to this meeting who would have been Virginia slave owners, he told them. He told them what was necessary. He told them what was necessary to make this stuff happen, to have your people in chains. And so one of the things that's going to hinder people from getting out of generational curses, one of the things that's going to hinder people, hey, shalom, Brother Morel, how you doing? One of the things that's going to hinder people and it's going to stop people from generational curses and things of that nature. You said that the laws of Ma'at come from Cush. Yeah, they didn't call them Ma'at because Ma'at is a netur. She's a netur or a deity that has a Kemetic name. But Cush, if you I won't say anything, but almost everything that we consider to be Kemetic, it started in Cush. Cush is the big brother. By the way, the Bible talks about that too. That Cush is the big brother. Kemet is the second oldest. All right, but nevertheless, the tribe of Cush, the tribe of Kemet, of Kemet, they are the same family. And if you simply look at, you probably know this already, but if you look at the study and study both, you'll discover that basically it was Kush as the empire first, and then all of a sudden it became Kemet, and then it went back to Kush, and then went back to Kemet, and then went back to Kush. Been Kush the last time when they basically got over it, and this going back and forth thing. When Kush finally got a hold of it at the end, because Kemet was becoming weak, because Kemet wasn't actually upholding the stuff that they were supposed to, and had overstretched herself and was dealing with enemies coming from what we now call the north. They would have called it the south back then, but what we now call the north. When you saw these things, when they saw these things happening, and Kush saw that Kemet wasn't going to be able to hold her own, Kush actually came to the rescue. The last time they took over, Kemet actually somewhat stepped back and welcomed it, because they were going to get taken over by all these other people. And so Kush actually helped to delay the inevitable, but the last Cushitic, Pharaoh, he kind of went away in shame because he couldn't hold on to both empires. So, that's culture. A lot of people, we can't even start talking about generational, you're coming out of things without coming to out of culture. We're talking about generational curses. We can't come out of generational curses, generation after generation after generation, revisiting the same thing. Willie Lynch syndrome, PTSS, post-traumatic slave syndrome, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, all these different things that we're carrying, as far as health issues, because we keep talking about that it's something that runs in our family, but won't talk about the fact that we keep eating the same foods, and not discussing the fact that there are certain foods that we should be eating as a people because we are made differently. If you don't believe so, just look in your melanin, right? Look in your melanin. Your melanin is different. There are certain people who have sulfur at the center of their melanin. You have selenium at the center of your melanin, right? So you're going to have a difference in what you should eat, what you should be injected with, all these different things. There should be a difference. Even if you're going to take something to be injected with, you shouldn't be able to do that. Netcher really doesn't translate into a spelling in English, so there's no proper spelling of Netcher, but you could say, if you wanted to write it out phonetically, you could say N-E-T, I guess J-U-R-E, Netjur, more than likely. But that's how you would spell that. Believe your heart, not your mind. Out of the abundance of the heart does the mouth speak. So whatever you put in your heart is the issue, right? But once again, we're dealing with something that's culture. This is having been led as we believe. Thank you, Wolf, for being part of the community. Didn't it say here in Philadelphia, I heard over the networks a woman being arrested for getting pregnant by a cop or a corporation? Okay, I don't know about that. Sorry to hear that. I hate that assumption that it was stolen. Yeah, that's usually, but I can't be mad at it because a lot of people go on there, but that's where they come from. Thoughts on Kwanzaa? I don't do Kwanzaa just because I get that somebody in America was trying to make sure that they had some kind of solidarity for our people, and we didn't. But once again, it goes to culture. They assume we don't have holy days of our own, which we already do. Whether you're talking about, our culture that I'm speaking of, or other tribes, there are plenty of holidays, but they decided to just make up their own rather than study about them. And in doing so is actually something that's offensive, because you're saying, okay, on the first day of Kwanzaa, right, I'm going to take your tribe stuff and say that all of your stuff fits, I'm going to take a little piece of this and a little piece of that. I'm not going to take your deities, though. I'm not going to take but I'm going to take pieces of the stuff. And I'm just going to take some names, and then I'm going to say we calling this the first one. And then I'm going to take somebody else's stuff on the second day, and I'm going to say that all of them are the same, but these people have, deities that they worship. These people have culture that they worship. So it's misappropriation. I don't think we should do it not only it should not be done to black people. I don't believe we should do it to other people, white people, so whenever we're using these terms. Also, too, I don't believe that we should do it to each other. So I just don't do it. And it's not really... just if one of the reasons I don't celebrate Christmas because it's a made up holy day that's off of some pagan stuff and off of some Gentilic stuff and off of some Greco-Roman stuff and off of some stuff that's against what we should be doing, that I can't turn around and be like, I'm gonna do Kwanzaa. That's two-faced. Elon Musk is on to something. Okay. I don't know what that means. Breezy's mama says, is South Sudan a huge Hebrew population exists? And there are pockets all over Africa. Yeah, well, that would make sense. South Sudan, that'd be Cush. Don't forget Moses married with a Cushitic woman. That happened a few times in Israel. And don't forget that Israel, people think that when Israel scattered, you're only talking about one time in history. Israel scattered constantly over history. And they usually scattered, the first places they would always go to would be Kemet, Cush, and West Africa. You know, in the area of, I guess, modern day Ghana, all the way up to Mali, going through, Igbo land in Nigeria, things like that. So, these are things that are there from. These are things that are there for us to know. What state am I from? What state was I born inside of? I was born inside of Maryland. That's the country I was born inside. The state is a country. Hey, Shalom, Styles, thanks for being on. So, yeah. Are you saying slavery was a justifiable curse in the final verse? I haven't even gotten through the verses. I said that it's about culture. I said nothing about slavery. Matter of fact, the word slave wouldn't have been the word that we would have used, correct? Slave coming more so from Slavic people that were mistreated. But we can get to that. But I'm not going to, I'm not going to be forced into a conversation that I don't even have, that I didn't even say anything about. So if you'd like to listen in, you can listen in. If not, thank you for being on. Flipper says, can we talk about modern day slavery? And there's 40.3 million people still today in slavery. There's probably 300 million people still in slavery today, if you want to be honest. And that's just in the United States, because if you're still a citizen of the United States and not a non-citizen national, then you're still a slave because you're still in debt. A slave is in debt. A debt is a slave, right? So we got to get plant-based meals. People are overeating animals. I mean, yeah, okay, for sure. That's something that could help, definitely. But, I don't do the overpopulation thing. So that's not really necessarily what, we've been taught about that. But that's something else to get into. Saying I think we should extremely upset about modern day slavery. Okay. Yeah, we talk about it quite often. Yeah, prison to pipeline, one out of every 8 people in the world, or at least men, I believe. I think women is similar too, but 1 out of every 8 black men, or 1 out of every 8 men in the world who are in prison are black. I think it's 4 out of every 8 men in the world that are in prison are Americans. So yeah, there's a lot going on there, most definitely. Said I've never seen someone with 5,000 viewers and really have something pertinent to say. I don't last as long. I'll tell you this much. This is the 3rd time. They let us get up to tens of thousands each time. That's why it says Kofi_43. And then after that, they start giving us, they already have been giving us huge problems, but we've been trying to find ways to get around it. Flipper said, okay, Flipper, I guess you make it a point to say that we're not talking about modern day slavery enough. I've seen you 3 times now. I apologize. So I apologize if this is something that you've decided is not, met your standard yet. Actually, I can't apologize for it. We do what we do. We talk about what we talk about. It's haven't been led as we believe. All right. Vibe says Christmas is about winter solstice. The sun is not available. The sun is not visible in Alaska for 3 days, like yesterday. Okay. There's times that it's not available for longer than 3 days, but at the end of the day, yeah, we talked about that already in Christmas. So yeah, this is part 18 once again. So there's some things that you guys are going to maybe dismiss or not think that we're going through or whatever, but we've gone through some of this stuff already. Thank you for the compliment on the voice. Ancient Kemet is everywhere. All lands are Kemet. Okay, so that's something a lot of people do, where we deny that anything else happened outside of Kemet, and everything has to be Kemet. Now, if you're actually somebody who's in the Kemet stream, and you're actually looking at the religious point of view, so to speak, for people who misuse that word, because we often misuse the word religion, what it actually means and where it actually comes from. Nevertheless, if you're somebody who's doing the religious thing with chemistry, and you actually study it, not just know about the 42 negative confessions of Ma'at, but you know about the science of it, using the third eye, which is just basically developing the pineal gland and making sure it's not calcified and making sure that you're faithful in your prayers and communion and stuff like that, then I get what you're saying. But a lot of people aren't necessarily going into all that, right? They're just saying that Kemet is everything and everything is Kemet, and even Kemetic people didn't necessarily believe that. Kemet is on the east coast of America. Yeah, I know some people who talk about that, going through that situation. So let's see. So beautiful to hear some truths. Thank you very much. We try to give contextual facts on here as much as we can. What is my opinion on Kemet? What do you mean, my opinion on Kemet? I don't know. That's a very broad question. What do you mean? You have to break that down. King Roe says, yes, brother, each state is a country. Thank you for admitting that. Yeah, no problem. So something's going on weird with my scroll. It's putting you guys, every time it scrolls up, it rejumbles your stuff. Do I believe in Christ? Yes, I believe in Christ. I believe in Mashiach. I believe in Yahshua Mashiach, right? The Messiah, the anointed one. Yes. I'm not a Christian though. Hey, how you doing, Sister Benita? All right. So kind of caught up on all these. Let's dig a little bit into Deuteronomy 28. I'm not sure how much of it we're going to go through and read word for word. That's why you should always study to show yourself approved anyways. If I were to go through everything, somebody would doubt every single thing that I go across anyway. So you might as well just listen to some of it. Ask whatever questions you can. If you'd like to try and put them in the question mark box, as we've had a couple of our sisters making sure that they've been telling people, I'll try to get back to you. Somebody wrote in the question mark box a while ago, looks like, how do I get in touch with myself or my higher self, my spiritual self, who I really am, who I am as far as my pneumatical thought, instead of just the psychology and instead of the physiology, and which really the answer to all of that is that it comes from a culture, once again, and it's going to come from your standard. It's going to come from law, kingdom law, marital law, natural law, laws of attraction, universal law, law of equity, common law, law of admiralty, law of first mention, right? There are laws that do not change. And laws protect your rights. You have unalienable rights you can't be separated from, but laws protect your rights. And also culture sets up everything, because culture is going to set up what you believe. Your belief is going to set up your emotion. So why you get emotional the way you do is because culture establishes your belief. And when somebody says something about your belief, whether it's positive or negative, you go into a place of emotion with it. So you can't control your emotion without having a culture that you go to, right? No problem, Flipper. I hear you. I just saw several times, and I'm not even sure now that I said it. Remember, I just said that it says that every time it's popping up, it's scrolling up for me. It looks like it's doing random things or putting people in random position, So, but yeah, so this is why we're saying a lot of people are going to have a problem getting out of generational curses. A lot of people have a problem developing generational wealth. A lot of people have a problem speaking generationally because they don't have a culture of that, and they don't in the law. If you don't study culture and you don't study law, it's going to be impossible for you to come out of generational curses, right? You'll be able to possibly take care of yourself and maybe give your children a couple bucks along the way, but when you're talking about trying to destroy something that is manifested where somebody studied your curses and studied the things that cause you fear and anguish, right? You're not going to get out of that if you're not able to look at the laws that they put up to get against that, to protect them and protect their system. Because remember, that's why we talk about law. You have to even understand the simple concept of law. Those who've been with me for a while, you already know what I'm about to say. Let me say it again, though, for those who might not have heard me before. Law does not give rights. Law protects rights. So if you understand what law's objective is, law has nothing to do with I'm going to give you the right to do something. That's what people think. People think that like civil rights law means that they gave you the right to do something. Law says we're protecting your rights. So even when you go to court, you have to prove one of a few things. You have to prove that you have the right to do what it is that you did, or that the person that did what they did didn't have the right to do it, right? There's certain things you have to prove, right, and give substance to it, substantive law, and even figure out if they had the right to do it as far as, are you a private citizen, are you a public citizen? Right? Law protects the rights, but you have to show the rights that you even have, right? And the law is going to protect the rights then that you have. We use this as an example quite often. Why is it that people, when somebody gets killed by a police officer and everybody screams police brutality, why is it that stuff doesn't usually happen? Because if you go into court and your defense is police brutality, if you look up in Black's Law Dictionary, right, and if you look up in basically what this system, this Eurocentric system bases its law off of, there's no such thing as police brutality in there, which means that you're asking the judge to go past the law, or to feel nice enough, because he has the ability to by law, to say, okay, I'll go ahead and take on something that really doesn't exist in our culture. In our culture, police can't be brutal because police officers come from slave patrolmen. They're supposed to be brutal. They get paid to be brutal. They get paid to run down people and make sure that they enslave them. Right? But here you are talking about this curse called police brutality that keeps on happening, but you don't know about law. Now, if you were going to the same judge, though, who doesn't have to deal with police brutality because it's not really a thing in his culture, and you say to that judge, hey, this police officer is trying to circumvent or get around my civil rights, now the judge has to listen to you differently, because you're not speaking on something that doesn't exist. You're not speaking on something that's not cultural. You're speaking on something that is, in fact, very much so in their culture. So in their culture, in their language, what they've written down in the language of their law, this is culturally how you have to speak to them. It's like you trying to go and speak to somebody, who speaks Mandarin, but you speak Spanish. Right? There might be some things that they catch because maybe you have some similarities. Maybe they've studied Spanish. Maybe they decided to study some Spanish. Maybe they went to Spain and so they know some basic stuff, but it's going to be really hard to get the gist of what you're saying across. And we do the same thing when it comes to the things we're going through now as far as trying to come out of generational curses, because we don't speak culture. We don't know the other person's culture and how to speak in it. And we don't know law. Willie Lynch said this in his speech in 1712. Back then, he made it a point to say that language is a very peculiar thing. It's a very strange thing. It sits by itself. He said language is something that if somebody comprehends it correctly, it can actually cause them to be able to go up and down in your system throughout the ranks and still not be phased and come out of it. And matter of fact, that could cause the destruction of a system, to where somebody can speak through your system and be able to expose the system for what it is. Right? So he said, he said, for example, this is his example, right? This is not my example. This is not a Malcolm X example. This is not an Afrocentric example. This is Willie Lynch's example. Slave master extraordinaire, slave owner extraordinaire, Willie Lynch, right? He came over and he gave this example. And when he was in Virginia, he made a point to say, hey, while I'm here, I need you guys to understand that, let's say somebody says, our house is doing well, or our house is nice. He said, if the person is dumbed down and they don't really comprehend the language that they speak, what will happen is, when I say our house is doing well, he said the slave will assume that it's their house because he doesn't know the language. So he'll say, well, yeah, our house. So he'll think that when I say our, I mean both of ours. He said, but when the slave actually learns the culture, because that you can't learn the language without learning the culture. So when you actually get the language down and the culture down, you'll understand that there's a difference between our house and our house. You'll understand that he'll understand that when the slave master says our house, that doesn't mean his house. It means the master's house. And he said if that slave understands that slave will try to have what they call drapetomania, which means they'll try to run away. It was a bad thing for a slave to run away, right? And guess what we still carry today? The Deuteronomy 28 curse. We still carry that mindset of being in the oppressor, right? We'll read some of the verses that I'm talking about in a second, but we that's what we still carry today. I'm sorry, Front Porch Pulpit says, I appreciate you. You're winning. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, thank you, Sister Benita. Appreciate it. Yeah, law protects rights. The Bible is law and case study. Odd Melon says, if only there was this dude named Jesus, what a joy that might be. Only if. Yeah, I mean, if there was a guy named that, what a joy it would be. Right, so these are things that are there. This is generational curse stuff, Deuteronomy 28. Now, one of the things that we don't talk about enough of, though, is before we always go to the generational curse, which starts at verse 15 and goes through 68. So there's a lot of them for us to be careful about. We have to first think about the fact that you have control to stop the curse or keep the curse going. Right? When Moses talked about this was something that said you have the right to stop this curse. You do not have to be in this curse. And a lot of times we kind of stop right there, just like, oh, there's a curse. We've been in this for 400 years, and now we're going to have to deal with this. And my people, I don't think my people will ever do this, and blah, blah. You have a choice. Did you know that? You have a choice in the matter. A lot of people are not aware of the choice in the matter, right? Or don't think about it that much. But you have a choice. You do not have to be into the curses. You don't have to do them. You have 14 verses where it says that these are the things that will happen if you observe and do the commandments. So once again, we got to get into law. You're almost all the way there. So Jesus, yeah, well, I mean, you got it right to a certain extent. Jesus, yeah, comes from Yesus or Yesu, and the Latin and the Greek, Yesus. The Latin and the Greek actually happened at the same time. In your Bible, you'll see that his name was written in 3 languages at the same time. It was Yeshua, Yesus, and Yesu. Problem is, though, is that Yesus is not actually a transliteration from Hebrew to Greek because there's certain letters that don't translate. So it was a nickname given to him because he was all the way man and all the way Zeus. Right? It was a nickname given to him by Pontius Pilate, who had wiped his hands clean. He said, hey, I can't find any fault. Y'all want him dead? Y'all keep telling me you want him dead. I've had dreams. My wife has had dreams. I've talked to him. I don't find any fault. Try to give you Barabbas. I wash my hands clean. And hey, since the people speak different languages in here, because not everybody who lived there was Israel, he said put his name in. He said put the name that they're charging him with, Yashua. He said then I want them to know who it is that I say they're killing. And he said put Yesus up there and put Yesu. So yeah, you're pretty much there. Kim says, what about the Most High saying these curses will be on Israel until we call unto him as a nation? Yeah, they'll be on us as a nation, but it doesn't mean that everybody in a nation is going to be cursed. Because, it doesn't mean that if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, you have to get cursed, right? Not all Israel is Israel, Romans 9:6. We have to be qualified. Just because you're born Saul was an Israelite, the first Saul, not the one that turned into Paul, but Saul was an Israelite. Saul still, or Saul, really, but Saul, he basically died. He was the first king. He was disobedient. So just because one person's disobedient doesn't mean you have to have the disobedience, and doesn't mean that Yah will not separate that or whatever. That's why Revelation chapter 12, it talks about the woman, Israel, but then it talks about a remnant as well of those who are not necessarily connected to Israel, who are being wiped out by Satan. That we should come together as a nation, and anybody wants to come on, sure, but there's a lot of people that still try to do their own thing, and as they're out there, they can be picked off. Aramaic and stuff like that, when you're talking about that, you're really still dealing with almost the same exact language, so I don't even get into that argument. People who try to do the Aramaic thing, we're not dealing with proper phonetic aleph bet, and we're dealing usually with somebody who's saying that because they have more respect for Aramaic culture sometimes than Israelite culture. So, we're getting into a whole bunch of other things. But nevertheless, so culture, Deuteronomy 28. We have 14 verses dealing with making sure that you and I don't have to stay in curses, right? We got 14 verses before we start at verse 15 and talking about you're going to be cursed for this and this and this and this and all those things, right? We have 14 verses. We have 14 verses in which we're dealing with positivity, right? And the reason why I'm saying it is because you got to be honest about it. Don't only just think about, this is why you're not going to make it. This is why you can't do it. This is why, like the Bible says that you as an Israelite, Yashua, he was speaking to Israelites, right? When he's talking about the brothers that were given talents, one given 5, one given 2, one given 1. That's 1,000 pounds of gold. That's 400 pounds of gold. That's 200 pounds of gold, right? He's talking about people that would be, even if you just want to look at it from the form of a parable, he's talking about Israelite people, right? And how you can still do well and not have to be cursed, right? So we have to recognize that this is more powerful, is more deep than just only the curse. And a lot of us tend to focus and lend ourselves only to the curse. It's bigger than just the curse. Thanks for being part of the community, Beverly. Right? It's bigger than just the curse. It's bigger than just the curse, right? So here we go. Deuteronomy 28. And it shall come to pass. If. So here's the key, right? If. Yahweh is an if-then Elohim. He's an if-then Elohim, right? He's an if-then Elohim, right? That means that if you do what you're supposed to do, then he'll do what he's supposed to do. That's what's called covenant. Now, the then will always be there because he'll always do what he's supposed to do. It's always on the if. If you'll do what you're supposed to do, because he's going to always take care of the then. The if is always the question. The then is already settled. The if is always the question. The then is already settled, right? And thank you for everybody once again on all these platforms that we're on. We appreciate you so very much. And thanks for being hanging in there with us and taking some time out with us on a day we know you could be doing whatever else you wanted to be doing, but you're still hanging out with us and spending some time. We appreciate you, right? So there's an if, that's on you, and then there's a then. Yahweh will take care of what he's supposed to take care of. It's always if then, right? So if you do what you're supposed to do, there's a then. Sorry, Minister 9 says, I have control to break and stop generational curses. Amen. Thank you for that compliment. Appreciate it, right? So if you'll do what you're supposed to do, then it's going to be taken care of, right? But there's an if, right? If you preach this word, Matthew 24, if you preach this particular word, this particular thing that's been given to you to bless you and the community and anybody that wants to come out of the world, well, guess what? If you do that and it reaches the entirety of the earth realm, then, right? If you do that, then he says, that's when I'm coming back, right? So if you want the Most High to come back, right, in the form of Yeshua HaMashiach, if you want him to come back at Revelation, then you have to preach this word and it has to reach the entire globe. And once it does, then he can come back, because then, hey, if everybody's heard the word, as soon as everybody's heard the word that's alive, or has had a chance at least to be covered by it, right? And has at least had a chance to where their parents have been covered by it, whatever, that everybody has had some representation where they can be covered by this thing, then guess what? At that point, he can come back legally, because you can't judge a world in which not everybody's had an opportunity to get the message. Those that are dead, they have an opportunity, right, in heaven or hell, to get the message. That's why there's a second judgment even for those that are in hell. Read Revelation chapter 20, to where they'll have a second chance, because they might not have known certain things, but they're eternal. They shouldn't have to stay in a place for eternity if they didn't know any better. Or they might be in heaven, depending, even because they might have been ignorant, right? That's why there's only one judge. I'm not the judge. The Most High is the judge. He has the heaven and hell to put people in, right? But there's always a if. If you do what you're supposed to do, then he'll do what he's supposed to do. That's covenant. Amen. Yeah, Minister Tamara just said, yep, that's covenant. Right? If you do, then he'll do. If you do, then he'll do. If you do, then he'll do. All right, so Deuteronomy 28, look, this is going to be an if, then, if sandwich. There's going to be an if, then, if sandwich. Y'all ready? We're going to eat today. We're going to eat the word. It's going to be an if, then, if sandwich. All right, you ready for this? Let's go. All right, Deuteronomy 28, and it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahweh Elohim, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day. Here's the then, that Yahweh Elohim will set you on high above all of the earth, or on all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on thee, and do what? And overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of Yahweh Elohim. You see that? Amen. That word is sweeter than honey, right? It's if, then, if sandwich. Y'all catch that? If, then, if sandwich. If you do, if is the bread. That's doing what? That's centered around that's centered around the meat or the pulse or whatever it is that you having, the herbs, etc. If is the bread, and the then is the meat. The then, your promise that you're looking for, is going to be surrounded by how well you do with the if. That if can't be so soggy, right? It can't be so messed up and so out of pocket. It's that the stuff is falling through. It can't be so moldy that you can't eat it anyways, because it causes sickness. Even if you try to eat the promise, that bread has to be on point. That if has to be on point. And a lot of people are trying to eat these promises, but don't have any bread that's worth anything to hold it. Right? There's a if then if thing going on. You said, I'm so excited to hear this word from you today, my brother. Amen. I'm excited to give it. Thank you for being on, right? So it's an if then if sandwich. So there's if. Now watch the if. This is why we say a lot of people are going to miss how to get rid of generational wealth and how to come out of generational curses, because a lot of people are busy with how can I say this? A lot of people are busy when it comes to this stuff, or are busy in the wrong culture, busy in the wrong belief system, right? So a lot of us are not thinking about culture, and not thinking about law. But understand that if you do, watch this, it shall come to pass. That means it's a promise, right? It means it's going towards what? This thing coming to pass is a promise. If thou shalt, that means you must do it. Shalt hearken. That means listen. Listen to what? Or listen how? Diligently. Listen diligently. Listen diligently to what? Hearken diligently unto the voice, right, of Yahweh Elohim. A lot of people don't even know that word voice actually in different cultures actually is where you get the term phone or phone from. So the word phone, right, when you're talking about the voice, the word phone, right, back in the day we used to do like this. Now young people go like this. But back in the day when we used to get on the phone or whatever, or even nowadays if you get on the phone, you're talking about something that causes a voice transference. That's what you're talking about with a phone or a phone. You're talking about a voice transference, right? So on a phone call, like when I give people phone calls, I have to be able to make sure that I can hear their voice and they can hear mine, or else there is no conversation. There has to be some kind of voice transfer. There has to be some type of voice transference. You hear what I'm saying? There has to be some kind of voice transference in order for there to be a phone call, right? Yeah, I guess, phonics. Yeah, phonics as well, right? You're dealing with the tribe as well, but yeah, you go even with phonics, right? There has to be some kind of voice transference, whether I'm on the phone like this, nowadays like this, whatever. There has to be some kind of voice transference, right? If there's no voice, so I have to hearken to this thing called language. You got to comprehend what we're talking about, right? I have to hearken to this thing called language. And if I don't have proper language, right? Hear what I'm saying? If I don't have proper language, I can't listen to what the Most High is saying. Right? Did you catch that? If I don't have proper language, right, Brother Dennis? If I don't have proper language, then I can't listen diligently. Right? I have to hearken, which is to listen, but I can't hearken diligently if I don't have language together. Right? I have to have proper language together. Now this is this word for listen is shafmach, right? And it's a verb, so it's an action, and it means I can't perceive it or I can't hear it. I can't perceive it. So it's not just hearing it, right? It's not. A lot of people think listening is hearing, and hearing and listening don't always mean the same thing anyway. But it's not just like listening so that something can be audible. It's being able to perceive what is being said. That's why we talk about culture, right? So it shall come to pass if thou shalt perceive what is being said diligently unto the language of Yahweh thy Elohim. Right? So it's saying something different, right? Because we just read it as, and it shall come to pass if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God. That's what a lot of people read it as. But if we read it correctly, it's saying, look, this is going, all the stuff in Deuteronomy 27 before, Deuteronomy 27 all the way to the beginning of Deuteronomy, right? Is leading us to a point to where we have to get to a place to where we shall, it's that we shall make sure that we keep the promise. And when we keep that promise, we will be able to perceive correctly and perceive with diligence, right? Not giving up until we perceive it. And even when we perceive it, trying to perceive it further and further and further and get deeper and more profound and live it at a greater level and a greater clip and all this stuff like that. Get it right and righteous so that we can perceive the language that's being spoken. And when we perceive the language that's being spoken, it must be the language of the Most High. If it's not his language, then we're going to miss everything that's going on. That's why, once again, we have to break culture down first, and we have to break down law. People are missing this. People are trying to have conversation about culture, about Deuteronomy 28 without culture and law. It's going to be impossible. People are trying to break generational curses without culture and law. It's going to be impossible. The reason why you have a generational curse is because there is a culture that you've decided to abide by or abide in, rather than abide in Yahshua and he in you. Once you got to stop living in the culture you've been in long enough to be able to even comprehend that you've been messed up. Right? You got to abide in a culture, or you got to abide outside of a culture of stuff long enough to be able to figure out what's been done to you. You can figure out that something bad is going on, but until you step outside of it, right? You can step it you can step outside of, you can be in a relationship where something doesn't seem to feel right and you're not getting the love that you need and desire this and that. And you're in an abusive relationship and somebody's speaking down on you all the time, telling you how negative you, or telling you only negative things, calling you all types of names, telling you that you ain't good enough no more, telling you that you just like your mom or your daddy, telling you ain't going to do this and that or whatever. But until you step outside of that thing for a second, you're not even going to see the damage that's been done. You'll know that you're damaged, but you can't even see it yet. I'm telling you, somebody does a lot of life coaching and marital coaching, you can't even see it yet until you step outside of it. And a lot of people are still married to your oppressor, right? Jeremiah chapter 3, verses 1 through I think we read all of chapter 1 yesterday, or sorry, all of chapter 3, excuse me. But Jeremiah chapter 3, where the Most High is saying, like, y'all are supposed to be married to me and y'all out here cheating and doing this or whatever. He says, look, I'm trying to talk to you to get you to step outside of this for a second and look at the high mountains and to look at your lives and to look at what happened to your brothers and sisters that had to leave, the 9 tribes that are already gone, and how basically they already got their divorce papers, and yet they're more faithful where they've gone to than you are, even though you supposedly never left and went anywhere. Right? Like he was saying, I'm trying to get you to step outside of this thing long enough that you can see what you're doing. Okay, well, we can talk more about Yah's Land Project outside of this or whatever when we have our next conversation, Brother Dennis. Said, where should you start? You start here. You start today. You start in your prayer life. You start with sovereignty. You start with saying, start with the definition, the original definition of what an American is, which is a copper-colored black person that lives in the Americas. Start with a definition of what God is, and realize that God is not Elohim, and that's one of the reasons why people are fighting. Start with self, because if anybody can break the generational curse, it could be your generation, right? It starts with every second. It starts with every minute. It starts with every phone call. It starts with every time that you could curse somebody up, but you don't curse. It starts with every time that you could, have that addiction that you have, but you don't fall into the addiction again. It starts with you usually don't give your all, or you allow things to get you off track, and you don't get your work done that you need to get done. But today you're not going to let that happen. Minister Nani said, right, people are still overcoming childhood traumas. Yeah, it starts with forgiving people from your childhood. It starts with going back there. A lot of times when I do life coaching, one-on-one stuff, I got to go back to people's childhood, because we don't protect the little girl and women, and we don't protect the little boy and men. We got to go back there and deal with that. It starts there, right? But it starts with, in this sense, it starts with his commandments, right? Because it says, and all that stuff we talked about, It shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahweh thy Elohim, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that Yahweh Elohim shall set thee on high above all the nations of the earth. Right? So you have to observe and to do. Observe, ought to do. Ought and is talking about going towards. Right? So you have to observe towards doing. A lot of people observe this word. A lot of people can quote this word. A lot of children can quote this word. Matter of fact, I'm trying to make sure that I'm kind of pumping my son back up, because it's been a little, because of how busy I was at one point. He's kind of been lacking on his scripture and stuff. And so I'm kind of been getting back into pumping him up with word and stuff like that. But he's still at a point where what he's just quoting. When the maturity is really going to come from him is not that he can quote a scripture, but when he can tell me what the scripture means. Right? That's going to be the maturity, right? And a lot of us can quote something and we can observe it. We can even tell you, like, we'll tell you the pastor's supposed to do this and that or whatever. Now, we cheating more than the pastor, but we'll say, well, the pastor, he wasn't cheating, but, he was over so-and-so's house. And come to find out, since he was over so-and-so's house, maybe he was. Shit, we start these rumors and everything. You'll observe it, but you cheating yourself. You looking at a man walking down the street, why are you walking with your husband? You looking at a woman walking down the street, why are you walking with your wife? And you get right, you're sitting up there having emotional dates because you're mad at your husband and your wife for that week, so you let somebody take you out to eat. But hey, at least I didn't sleep with them, doing stuff like that, right? But you won't do the law yourself, but you observe it very well. Right? But when you get to a point where you observe and do, what's the next part? When you observe and do not some of the commandments, but what all of the commandments that I give you this day, then it says what? Yahweh thy Elohim, right, will do what? Set you on high above all nations of the earth. See, this is what sovereignty is. This is why I don't want you to learn about sovereignty. Sovereignty says that you have to not only be above your problems and your situations and your circumstances. Sovereignty says that nations don't have a right to come on you because of what you're protected by. Right? And thank you for the agreement with that, you guys. That's right. Like, that's understand now. Understand. And I'm coming out the King James Version right now. Understand that that's what's going on. Right? Understand all these things that are going on is that basically, like, when you observe and do the commandments of the Most High, you are set on high, right? Above all nations of the earth. This is why, if like, let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it simple, but let's keep it a buck. You ever been to a service? You hear the preacher preaching, and you really don't want to listen to the preacher preaching after a while, and it's kind of boring, and you're sitting there, but you don't really want to come back to the experience, right? You know why that is? We've been taught that that's because we think we're all that. Sometimes you could think that you know something you don't know. The reality, though, is that we'll be sitting there, we'll be listening to a preacher, and we're listening to the preacher, and this is what goes on, is that this preacher ain't saying nothing of value. Like, let's keep it 100, right? I've been there, done that myself. I've probably been the preacher that wasn't given that at some time myself, right? You're listening, and you're like, I'm not trying to be rude. I'd rather be anywhere else, though, than listen to this person. Listen to her, listen to him. Like they're not saying it. I've heard this for 40 years. Come on. I heard this for 20 years of my life. I've heard this my entirety of my life, some of us. They're not saying anything. I probably can tell you, I already know. Okay, he tuning up the organ. He tuning up the band. I already know where they're about to go. Right? I already know what's about to happen. I already know he's going to say he got up. I already know he's going to talk about Christmas. I already know he's going to talk about Easter today. And he's not giving me anything new. You know why that is? Because when you come into knowledge of law and word and observe and do it, it says you will be set on high above all nations of the earth. I'm sorry to tell you, that includes pastors. That includes bosses. Sometimes you get upset and you're frustrated with bosses. You know why? Because you set on high above the boss, but you've made a choice in your life, or you've been taught in your life that you're supposed to work underneath the person that you're set on high above. Come on, somebody. Jeff Bezos is not above the law. Jeff Bezos is not above the Bible. But you've been taught, go get a job for Jeff Bezos, and making it in your mind that you're going to sign a contract to be under him, but not understanding that he's under you. You don't understand. We don't understand law because we think that the president runs things, but the president is a public servant. The president is limited in their power. I never blame a president outright. I tell people that the president represents the true power behind the throne, but I never blame a president outright for what's going on because the president is limited in power. They can only do so much. I don't expect the president to change anything. Like people think the president is going to come in there and somehow is going to get past limitations that they have. The president is only able to do what they're allowed to do. So the presidency comes with limitations. I've had people say, jokingly, of course, Kofi for president, or I've had people be like, hey, you should run for office. And I've thought about it before, but I told people my office really wouldn't be able to get anything done. I tell you, I could probably do some things, or at least hear some people, at least speak on people's behalf and use my gift. But I'm not sure if that means that I would be able to get anything done, because I comprehend that public office comes with limitations. Public officials are nothing more than public servants. Now, I don't mind serving the public, but I feel like I get a lot more done in public service outside of the government, right, than I could, right, or at least within the kingdom of heaven, that government, I get more done in that government than I do in the United States, right? But you're in a position to where it's tough. So when you go to work for somebody, if I go sign a contract, I understand that, hey, I got to be really humble, and I'm going to have to deal with a lot of stuff, and I'm going to have to be stressed out for a little bit because I'm dealing with somebody who is over me, right? But I've really been set on high above them. That's what you're dealing with a lot of times. So you can even see that in your personal life. A lot of times it happens like that. This system isn't created to serve the public. They're supposed to be, right, but they don't. Like the United States, any governor, he's supposed to be a public servant. Tell me the last time that a governor came and checked on you. And governors have time to do that. Like, if a governor really wanted to, a governor could take an hour or 2 hours a day and say, hey, we're going to go to this neighborhood and we're just going to knock on some doors and talk to the people. There's some governors that do that. I'll give credit where credit's due. I don't know how many exist now, but there used to be governors and mayors and people like that would do that from time to time and actually talk to the people. Even if they were not going to do anything for them, they at least used to talk to them. Right? At least used to try and identify with them as people, so that these people could say, okay, the person that's up there, at least I can say that we've had conversation. They don't even do that anymore. Can I tell you, even though he was into some evil stuff behind the scenes, can I tell you something that's real talk I give credit for? When I met, the second George Bush, but the first George Bush, I've actually been in the same room or area, I guess. I was in the same area as the second George Bush as well. But the first George Bush, I met him, and I think it was either right before or right after the ceremony we were supposed to do, or whatever. Probably right after, because he probably wouldn't just be there early, just chilling like that. He'd have to be protected. But I was in the military or whatever. He came, and he sat down. He looked me in the face, had a conversation. And I probably was 19, 18, somewhere around there. And I had a conversation with him, and he was talking to me. He was a former service member, so he was just talking to me like a regular person. Like, hey, he was like, hey, how you doing? Reached out. He sat down at the table. I was sitting down, and so he started coming up towards us. So I started trying to get up or whatever because I didn't see him till the last minute, and I noticed everybody else was standing at attention. I was looking down, and he's walking towards us, I guess. And I start trying to get up, and he just no, he sits down next to me, he shakes my hand, and he looks at everybody else. He's like, man, y'all can chill out. What y'all doing? And so it was just him and I sitting there at the table talking, and talking about things. He's asked me how long did I want to stay in, this and that or whatever. I'll give credit where credit's due. He might have done some stuff behind the scenes that's crazy, but in that moment in time, he at least treated me like a human being. That's why I say all this stuff that people set up or whatever, it's not even about black, white, this or that or whatever. That's what they got to keep up publicly, because he works for people like that. If he's going to keep his gig, if he's going to keep his position, but at that time, he old man. He ain't got to keep up that stuff anymore. He ain't got to front no more. He don't have to do all that stuff. He's retired. He's a made man at that point, so you don't have to worry about that stuff, right? But he had a conversation with me. I give credit where credit's due. We sat there, we talked for quite some, and it wasn't a short, I'm talking about, it was probably 10, 15 minutes. And he wanted to stay longer, Like they were trying to get him after like 2 minutes to stop talking to me. And he was like, no, I'm good. And he just, he kept telling them, stop worrying about it, but they had to keep him on schedule. So I'll give credit where credit's due, so you gotta understand that. But these men, they understand like they just men, right? And when you get into the word, you have to understand when it comes to the positions, your position is higher than what you think it is. But we had this mindset that we're lower than what we're supposed to be. I'm sorry, what you said was ready to get off milk and did not know that's what was going on. Oh, just dealing with tradition. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people don't think about these things, right? Now watch this. We're going to go, and so there's barely any real genuine connections nowadays. Yeah. The fascist corporations called governments are here to fleece the population. Yeah, they do. A lot of people do go through life robotic, just go through the same thing, do the same thing, wake up, go to sleep, go to work, wake up, go to sleep, go to work, or wake up, go to work, go to sleep. That's basically the stuff of it or whatever. First says, so if we serve pedophiles who adhere to the papacy, who's to say they don't lie about everything? Well, that depends on if you serve those pedophiles. Who's to say you have to, right? Because if they don't observe and do all the commandments anyways, then we shouldn't be underneath them, right? If people are deciding to be underneath that, then that's what they have to deal with, You said today they do that just before re-election? Okay, I didn't know. Besides them going to town hall meetings, I didn't know they actually sit down and knock on doors and do things, Oh, I'm fine, Brother Dennis. When I come on here, we go into war for however long we need. So this system isn't created to serve the public. Yeah, most definitely. So we're in a position where we have to realize and recognize what's going on. We have to realize and recognize the wickedness of the system, and we have to recognize and realize that we're supposed to be of the culture, observe and do. And once you observe and do, it puts you on high, right? Right? The gift will make room, right? Your gift will make room for you, right? It puts people on notice. And that's one of the reasons why people are frustrated with you when you learn truth, because now it's that crab in the barrel mentality, right, that we like to talk about. What are my thoughts on gravitation being the art of hocus pocus, lacking hypothesis and variables? Well, first of all, okay, that's okay. I have no, I have no thoughts of its relevancy. I'll just say that. How about that? Oster said, then as soon as he left the table, he went back and set the policies that hurt us. Maybe, I don't know. George Bush Sr. wasn't president anymore when I met George Bush Sr. in 2001, 2002, somewhere around there. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm just telling you, once they get to a certain position, they ain't really tripping off of the stuff that we're tripping off of, because it shows that they never should have in the first place, and we never should have in the first place, right? Because once you get to be to that level and you see the stuff, you see what's going on. Oh, you were talking about George Bush needing the break. Oh, okay, my fault. I'm sorry. Under construction says people are unable to connect with others because I feel it is due to not being connected to self. Yep, that's why we talk about self-control is important. If you don't have self-control, all that's left is control. Colloquial theories are more or less just those stories. To observations of scientific theory is proven. Scientific theory is not proven, though. Even the proving of scientific theory has shown itself not to be an exact science, correct? So if scientific theory is not proven to be an exact science, then why, right? Like, for example, gravity has been disproven by the theory of relativity, and theory of relativity was disproven, and that theory has been disproven. The God's particle or the Higgs particle was supposed to set everything in place and just cause more answers. People are telling us that because there's dirt in one place in the ground and there's dirt in another place in the ground, there's dirt in another place in the ground. Therefore, that's how you can tell how old the earth is or parts of the earth is, even though they can't go down too much further, but so far into the earth anyways. But they're going to tell you, it's all a theory. And at the same time, you can have a tree that's still alive, that goes down all the way through all those things of dirt that they're talking about, and that tree can still be alive, which means that tree is alive. So now you got to say, well, that tree is such and such amount of years old, but and then you got to come up with all this different science. But the reality is that tree disproves that just because the dirt is in that order means that it got in that order because could have got in there because of a flood or this and that or whatever. So a lot of people have to have faith, because a lot of stuff that's in scientific theory is not fact. Theory is something that's a faith statement. Theory is B. A is this is where we are, or this, A is this is where we were. C is this is where we are. B, we don't know how we got there. Somebody says, well, I believe this and that. Somebody else says, nope, that's not scientific enough. Here's a scientific theory that I have faith in. And even though I can't prove it, hopefully one day it'll be proven or disproven. But we'll use it now to teach people until we get to the next level. We're both operating out of the same type of faith. Nevertheless, once again, when we're dealing with this, once again, people are trying to talk about how to change things. You manipulate or vary the cause, testing the effects. In science, independent is always the cause of an obstacle. Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much. You can go ahead and dismiss everything that I have to say. That's fine. That's your choice. To dismiss somebody just because you don't like it, or to say that somebody's crazy or wrong or whatever, is not really anything more than ad hominem, and therefore leads to a place of Dunning-Kruger effect, which I'm pretty sure that you don't want to live in. But for whatever reason, you've decided that it's more important to do that than it is to actually listen to observations that somebody's saying and questions that come off of those observations, which would be in science, something as simple as just putting a hypothesis together. Both of us having differences in hypothesis and using different types of control does not mean that one's control is more relevant than the other. So, thank you very much. At the end of the day, so at the end of the day, you said I mentioned theories that have nothing to support or conflict them. I mean, okay, that's not what they taught. That's not what they use. But anyways, dealing with generational curse, that's why it's going to be cultural. Right? And when you say science, no, science is cultural. There's tons of sciences. They used to say that it was witchcraft for a shaman to heal somebody the way that they do. Now they say, oh, it's scientific, because they get to put a Latin term on the flower that's used. It was always scientific. It was just somebody else's culture. Right? They get to say intelligent design as part of the whole stuff, as far as one of the 6 parts of evolution, dealing specifically with the one of the cosmos and the cosmology. They now get to put intelligent design in there, but they don't. But they excuse me. So they get to say excuse me. So they get to say that, but they get to say the universe, right, and designed itself. But when I say, well, what about somebody designing the universe? They say I'm crazy, right? It's a cultural thing. So nevertheless, when we're talking about our culture, and we're talking about what we're saying, right? This is why it's called haven't been led as we believe. You don't have to believe it, and you don't have to respect it. It's our belief system, nevertheless. And you don't have to be our standard. They don't have to be our standard, right? You're convinced there's no such thing as a universe? Yeah, you can't, because a universe means that somebody had to speak it into existence. Uni and verse. So, but thank you very much. At this point, it's a takeover at this point, right? It's not necessarily a conversation. So when we're dealing in these things, you have to comprehend that we're dealing in, the function out of our own culture, right? When you're dealing with these things, you have to deal with the function out of our culture. And a lot of people want to not recognize or realize what's going on as far as our culture. So you're missing what it is. And you have to understand that people really have a problem with your culture, because your culture says that if you follow it to the letter, if you follow the law, right? If you follow to the letter of the law, if you follow everything and do everything, observe towards doing everything, it means that you get set on high, and people don't like it, because if somebody has decided to be part of something, like think about how many people just don't like to be underneath anybody. A lot of people just don't even have the ability, they don't have it in them to submit in any way, shape, or form. I'm sorry, Chef said, boom, limited in power they are. My mother taught me that before I was able to vote, yeah. And I've had this happen to me too many times. Deborah was saying earlier, okay. And this is the reality of what we're going through, right? So you have to understand, like when you're talking about getting things correct, you have to make sure that you comprehend what it is that you're talking about, as far as our culture. So people will subscribe to stuff that allows them to be servants to the public servants, or servants to science, or servants to, like I'm Shwi, but Shwi doesn't mean that I'm a servant to Shwi before I'm a servant to the kingdom. I'm Yashriel. That doesn't mean that I'm a servant to Yashriel before I'm a servant to the Most High, right? I'm a servant to my wife. It doesn't mean that I'm a servant to my wife before I'm a servant to the Most High, right? You gotta recognize these things and comprehend these things and understand these things, right? We're having conversations about these things and not recognizing, once again, culture and what comes first. And when we render Caesar's things to Caesar's, however, give Elohim's things to Elohim, right? You have to observe to do and understand that when you become part of this, you are above, which means that people that have to look up to you, they will either do one of two things. When people have to look up to you, they will either do one of two things, right? Maybe we can say one of three, right? They're either going to look up, they're going to either just look up to you. Wow, look at her. She's up high. That's amazing. They're going to do something else. Oh, why are they up higher? And why can't I be up there? Right? Which, by the way, is not a bad thing, because it doesn't mean they're necessarily pulling you down. Hopefully they get to a place where they ask that and you can help them to get up where you are. Or lastly, they'll look up at you and they'll try to figure out a way to get you down. Superman's flying. We need to figure out a way to get kryptonite so that he can no longer fly and he'll be weak and I can beat him up and I can tell everybody that he's no better than me. And that's what you're dealing with. Like, this is culture, right? This is some stuff, like, we don't really go into this, and we haven't even made it into the negative things. We haven't even gone into Deuteronomy 28, verse 15 yet, right? And there's so many things in verse 14 that are still positive. We haven't really made it out of the first verse of Deuteronomy 28. We really haven't even made it out of that. But we're seeing so much richness in this. It's a cultural experience. It's a cultural experience, right? You have to comprehend that just observing and doing the commandments by itself means that if you do that, then, right, that if then we were talking about, if you can observe and do all the commandments and hearken diligently, listen to the voice of the Most High, the language of the Most High diligently, then he will set you on high above all nations. The fact that you would observe and do commandments means that you automatically are set on high above all nations. That Yashua didn't ask to be king because he is appointed, not elected. Politicians has no relevance in that matter. Okay, right? So if you hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy Elohim diligently to observe and to do all these things that he has commanded you this day, then you will be set on high above all nations. So that's when all the other stuff kicks in verses 1 through 14. Being the lender and never the borrower, being above and not beneath, being the head and not the tail, right? Having your enemy come before you one ways and having to flee several ways. And even in the midst of speaking all that, he keeps on saying, but it's only if you do what you were commanded. It's only if, right? The consequence of doing righteous. Remember, there's great consequences, there's negative consequences. There's consequences of the Most High, there's consequences that are against the Most High, that come from being against the Most High. Right? There's consequences to this. Right? So either you're going to do what you're supposed to or you're not. But don't talk about how you should be set on high if you won't do. Right? A lot of people, I'm still stuck in my situation. I'm still stuck. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to do that. Are you obeying? Sometimes, like, you got to talk to people like that. Like, are you obeying? Are you willing to obey? Are you willing to go forward? Are you willing to do what the Most High tells you? Are you willing to show love to your enemy even when your enemy won't show you love? Right? Are you willing to make sure that you show up on time when others won't show up on time? Are you willing to make sure that even when you only can talk to two people, you'll talk to two people the same way? That's for me, right? I've been there and done that, where I preached sermons when nobody showed up to a service and I was the only one there physically. Could have went home, still took out my phone and recorded the message and still posted it. And after doing that for a while now, I got into a place where as soon as I put the phone on, I'm going to have one or two people show up in the first 2 seconds. Right, we had it before they took down the channel. You know, we were reaching 30-something thousand people each rising session just by itself. And at that point, I was only doing like an hour to an hour and a half. Now we do almost close to 3 again, right? Like will you observe and do even when it doesn't feel like it's like obedience is bliss, right? But sometimes, Sister Karen, sometimes it doesn't even feel like bliss. Will you still do it, right? Even when you don't feel like you like yourself, will you still love your family? Will you still love your wife? Will you still honor your husband? That's when you get set on high. That's what takes you from ordinary to extraordinary or extraordinary. If you want to be extraordinary or extraordinary, all you got to do is do one thing extra. A lot of people won't even do one thing extra. They do the bare minimum. Most people do the bare minimum to make it and then get upset because they're not making it. Right? I'm not saying that there's no such thing as racism. There's no such thing as classism. There's no such thing as chauvinism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying, though, is that people who do well, right, if you give them even equal, you know, even though there's no such thing as equality because no two people are equal, right? No people think equally. No people have equal DNA. No people have equal fingerprints, whatever. But nevertheless, people believe that if you just give me the same thing that somebody else does, well, guess what? You got to have the ability to go further than that. Because if I give you the same thing that somebody else does, all you are is the same, right? And you're not called to be the same. And some people are going to rise because they're willing to do something that somebody else won't do. Some of our businesses don't work because we won't just simply put in the effort. Some of us, some people could be speaking and reaching more people than I reach. But, you know, and they might be better than I am. They might have all the degrees, you know, of the thermometer and all these different things. However, they cannot do what I do because they don't have the will. They don't have the ability to get up. They don't have the ability that even when they don't feel well, they're going to do it. They don't think about those things. Right? So you have to understand that when you do what you're supposed to do, you will be lifted high above all nations. The curse happens when you do things that make you lower than all nations. When you think in the manner that makes you lower than all nations. Right? Who taught you to hate yourself in the first place? Who taught you that you weren't great? Who taught you that when you enter a room, the room doesn't get better? Who taught you that you shouldn't be what you said you were going to be when you were 4 years old and you can remember the first time somebody said, what do you want to be when you grow up? You remember you used to have lofty desire. Are you living in that desire? Who taught you that you're not supposed to live in that which you desire? Right? You have to come outside of that. You have to come outside of that. Right? Now we can start looking at Deuteronomy 28 verse 15 and so on and so forth, right? And we're only going to look at a couple different things, right? Because you can read the curses for yourself. A lot of this stuff is self-explanatory. It's just telling you this is what's going to happen to you, right? But let's see how it starts. Deuteronomy 28 verse 15. You believe the serpent? Okay. We don't. All right. But let's see. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh Elohim, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So Deuteronomy 28 verse 1 says, if you hearken unto the voice of Yahweh Elohim diligently and listen and observe to do all the commandments that you've been taught this day, this period of time that Moses has been with the people, he says, then you'll be blessed and you'll be lifted up high and you'll be above all nations. But Deuteronomy 28 verse 15, he says, but it shall come to pass, but cancel that out. All the first 14 verses we talked about. If you won't listen to the language, the voice of Yahweh Elohim, and therefore you're not going to observe the commandments nor do them, right? Or do both at the same time, not only to observe, but also to do. So it says a lot of people, once again, you observe, but you're not doing all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day. Well, what? That all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Now, so the curses like you shall be, and we talk about blessed in the city, blessed in the field. Okay, curse shalt thou be in the city, curse shalt thou be in the field. Cursed shall that be in the basket in thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body and the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kind and the flocks of thy sheep. You're not going to have increase, right? These are the things that a lot of people go through and then don't want to talk about. Well, maybe it's connected to some curses. Other people studied the curses and put them upon you. And even though they cursed them, studied these curses and told you, right? They told you why they were studying these curses and what they were going to do to you. We still won't listen, right? These are things that people are still going through, right? The Lord shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee, the sickness, until he have consumed thee off the land. Now, people don't understand this, because when we talk about this stuff, when it says the commands, what are some of the commandments talk about? Some of the decrees, some of the statutes, some of the things that were commanded. They're talking about food even. So we think that this is a thing of, oh, the Most High. This is what people try to get you on. I've even heard people say, well, if Yahweh cursed his people or made sure that he gave us 400 years, my little brother be talking about this a lot. Not my little physical brother, but my little brother, like in the spirit and stuff, be saying stuff like, well, this is, what is it? Basically like, if he cursed us, or if, because we didn't do what we were supposed to do, he let us be slaves and this and that, which slave doesn't exist in the Bible. Once again, that he made us be slaves, and therefore, because he made us be slaves, why would I want to serve somebody like that who would make me be a slave? First and foremost, a punishment is a punishment. My child does wrong, I punish my child, not because that I want to, but because it's going to help them to be able to grow. But secondly, it doesn't say that Yahweh's will was that you get cursed. It says that there are generational blessings that you should be able to get. However, if you decide that you want to go away from the will of the Most High, this is what's going to happen to you as a result, right? So if you don't eat food correctly, right, there's a whole bunch of laws on what you should and shouldn't eat. If you don't want to eat the correct food and you want to eat things that'll probably cause disease to be upon your body, then don't blame the Most High because you got disease, right? Don't blame your body because you have disease when you could have just ate something that doesn't have disease. Oh, Jinx, you said the same thing? And how you doing? Right? Oh, okay, I see. Right? Like, don't be upset if the Bible says, like, hey, you know what? You should honor your mother and father and you'll have longer life. And then you don't honor your mother and father, and somehow, some way, it seems like your life is falling apart. Like, that's not the Most High's fault. Right? Don't sit up there and when the Most High says, hey, I want you to break these generational curses off of you. Here's how you do it. Here's some things you can listen to. These are the commandments. And here's 14 verses on why those commandments hold true and why you need to do them. And you say, oh, well, how dare I be born into poverty, this and that. Fine, you're born into poverty. It doesn't mean you can't get out. I'm not one of these people that's saying, hey, man, stop making excuses and blah, blah. I understand there's classism. Look, I'm the result of classism. I'm the result of racism. Like, literally, we talked about it before. My mother passed for white. Her side of the family didn't like my father's side. My father's side of the family didn't like my mother's side, right? And until I was born, they didn't even really deal with each other outside of the wedding. They played nice at the wedding. At the wedding, after that, they didn't even talk to each other, right? Like, I comprehend. People just look at me and just make an assumption. Like, I comprehend a lot more about this stuff than a lot of people think. They just think that I'm somebody who was always raised in the church, and I was somebody who has no clue what it is for mixed race relationship or things like that. Like, I comprehend. I get it. I know. I know what's going on. Right? At the end of the day, though, there comes a point to where you have to take some kind of responsibility for it, right? We have to recognize what they did, sure. We have to recognize what they're doing, sure. But at some point, you also have to say, what are we going to do? When do they stop being the standard? Because we keep saying, okay, you messed us up. You're the standard for messing us up. We also want you to be the standard for getting us out. Where do they do that at? You don't go to the kidnapper and say that we need you to make things right. You lock the kidnapper up. Or if you don't catch the kidnapper, the goal is not to worry about even catching the kidnapper as much as it is to get the child back. We need to get the child back and put the child in a position where they don't have to worry about the drama of being under a kidnapper anymore and being drugged and being sold and all these different things that happen to them when they get into that position. The kidnapper is not the goal. If you get the kidnapper, that's great, but the goal is get the child back, right? Get the people back. Yes, I am Ghanaian, Akwaba. Yes, I am Ghanaian. Habari, Jambu, all that good stuff. Right? Or at least my people. I can't say I was born there, but I've been back a few times. Yeah. So, well, anyway, I'm sorry. I'm getting stuff mixed up together. I'm messing up. That's all right. Oh yeah. So we got to get the child back. We got to get the people back. That's what the curses are really looking at, right? You got to get your marriage back. You know, that's the curse of not dealing with the law. The fact that your marriage is in and outside of the kingdom, in and outside of the church, same divorce rate. At some point, you got to get your marriage back. Your marriage under somebody else's definition is obviously not working that well. Like, we got to get that back. We got to get our sisters back. Your sisters going to witchcraft and everything else because they're part of a system that ain't working for them. And all we do is just say, well, hang in there and be a strong, independent woman. They're like, you know what? If I got to be strong and independent, I might as well be strong and independent of you. Let me go to somebody else. Don't be mad what is happening if you don't have anything else to offer. We got our boys up here acting wrong or whatever. Right? That's why when I do life coaching and stuff, sometimes it ends up where I got to start talking to the boys in the family with the single mothers because there's no men that are in their life the way that they need to be. Right? At some point, you got to start saying to yourself, I'm going to do what it takes to get our people back. The curse is that we're not observing and doing things that are culturally sound and making sure that we have law that we follow that protects our rights as a culture. Sorry, Under Construction said, was thankful when I realized that my parents were placed here as our personal teacher. I'm in, right? And that you are that personal teacher for your children. Right? I mean, I don't really have to go through a lot of this stuff because it says what it says. Right? Deuteronomy 28:21, it says, Yahweh shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee until he has consumed thee from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. And Yahweh shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with the sword, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. They shall pursue thee until thou perish. They're trying to kill you all. Verse 23, and thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth shall be iron. It's going to be difficult for you. And Yahweh shall make the rain of thy land powder. But even if you think about what's being said too, by the way, it's going to be brass above you. It's going to be iron underneath you, right? It's going to be bronze, so to speak. Well, I don't know. We'll leave that there. But basically, you have the brass. You know, the brass is talking about, you know, even it's hard above you, even though it looks something similar to you, but underneath you, it's going to be what? It's going to be iron. Iron under your feet. Iron under your feet really is talking about who? It's talking about even Rome. Right? Like we're talking about specific things. Deuteronomy 28:24. Yahweh shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. You're not going to get enough rain. From heaven shall it come down upon thee and shall be destroyed. And in the Bible, whenever it doesn't rain, it means that there's somebody who's not in position to till the land. You know, we know these things. I mean, we could jump down a little further. Deuteronomy 28, verse 30. Watch this. Thou shalt betroth the wife. You shall get ready to be engaged to a wife. And what's going to happen? It says, and another man shall lie with her. So you're going to get ready to do that jump the broom thing, but somebody's going to be taking your wife. These are curses that happen when we get out of the will of the Most High. And we're thinking that the way we're going to get out of the curses is to stay out of the will of the Most High. You know, like a lot of people believe that if I stay out, so this is really the belief system, because if you're not with the Most High, you're against the Most High. The Most High is telling you that these are the curses that come with being against him. And we keep jumping out of this stuff saying we're going to get right back. So here we are continuing to say craziness, say foolishness like I believe in multiple marriages at the same time. You know, you call it poly, you know, being not poly, poly, what do they call it? Poly, whatever, you know, basically believing that you can have more than one wife at the same time, right? I can have more than one husband at the same time. I can lay down with as many people as possible. Why y'all worried about with how many people I lay down with? I'll be married, but I'm going to still go to the strip club every day, and I'm going to cheat in my mind, but I'm not going to cheat at home. And matter of fact, she'll come with me, so we'll be having a menage a trois together, and we'll both be committing adultery in our minds, but then trying to figure out why our marriage can't work that well. Yeah, polygamy really is what we're talking about. I was trying to think of something else, but yeah, polygamy is what it is, really, for real. But these are the things, right? Trying to figure out where there's a curse, right? So you shall be what? You shall betroth the wife, and another man shall lay with her, right? You shall build a house, but you won't be dwelling in it. You're building everybody else's home, everybody else's business, all these things, right? But you're not getting the result. You're not getting any money yourself, right? You're getting pennies. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof, right? Planting food for other people, and not being able to eat the food that you plant. Come on, like something's off. Polyamorous, yeah. I think that's what I was looking for. Right? Like it's telling you right here. These are the curses. These are the curses. It starts with a mindset that you won't even observe and do. Think culturally, think sensically, if you will. I'm sorry to say it that way. I'm not trying to say people lack any kind of sense, but I want you to think more sensically as far as this. What sense does it make to go and have a job for somebody else and then be upset that somebody else that you jobbing out for, who has already shown that they don't take care of people, and has already shown that people get paid pennies, and has already shown that they had to be forced in a position to make sure that you even got taken care of as far as health care and things of that, and it's still shown that they're not going to help your health care to come down. Matter of fact, your health care probably might go up, and when your health care goes up, you're paying on health care for things that you don't even need to go to the doctor for, because you should be able to grow things out of your own vineyard. That's a system that's set up for you to fail and not to do anything other than be a slave and cause the next generation to grow into slavery and the next generation to grow into slavery. And matter of fact, as they're growing into slavery, they're going to have a tougher time because they're going to desire to be slaves, desire to have a 9-to-5, desire to work their behinds off, but they can't even find jobs sometimes because now there's robots taking over. There's people saying, we're not going to pay you any more than minimum wage. We could care less, right? And we're in a position to where we'd rather our businesses fail, at least at first, right, to make sure that we hire you guys or keep you guys on, because you won't get a shot that we're saying to get. This is the stuff that your children are going into. You've got to be in a position to where you hearken unto the voice of Yahweh Elohim, to observe and to do it in every area of your life. What about your business life? What about your children's life? What about how they're being schooled? Are your children being schooled to where they're going to look for jobs, or where they're going to start business? If they start, and matter of fact, don't even need to start a business, but they can add a mansion onto your business and add on to your business. It's a different mindset. It's a different cultural aspect. Think about this. Let's go to verse 32. It says, the sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people. This is a curse of when you don't recognize your culture and stand up for your people. The reason why your sons and daughters came and grabbed and given to other societies is because we were so busy fighting each other. We didn't think of each other as family, as humanity anyways. So somebody came by and said, hey, I don't think of them as humanity either. We said, yeah, I don't like them good for nothing Negroes over there too. And before you know it, all of a sudden the people who were our enemy, we thought that the enemy of our enemy was our friend, come to find out that we had that wrong. That our friend, or our enemy, was actually our friend, and the enemy of our enemy was our enemy too. But we didn't think about it properly culturally. So here you are having people take over. Here you are having people mess you over. Here you are having people who frustrate you, who who have you in a bad situation. And now, even though you still outnumber them, you're afraid. Can we build? We're building now. We have things like Yah's Land Project 83. We have things like in order as far as trying to make sure that we grow our own food. We have things as far as making sure that we give out education. We're building right now. Even this is building. What you do with this, right? This is giving you the building. How about this? This is giving you building blocks. We don't get to go as in depth as we do in some classes and things, but even this is giving building blocks. What do people do with this? Some people come on because they like to hear it, but a lot of people still don't move on it. Some people have been listening to this for years and still aren't moving on it. Sometimes I tell somebody, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do? Well, I don't have the money for this. I'm like, I started investing with $1. $1 a week might have been all I could have afforded. I still gave the $1. At some point you gotta, you have to move. You have to have faith, and you got to build. It's not can we build, it's will you build. You guys have heard me say that plenty. It's not can you, it's will you. It's not. It's if you do it, then he'll do. Right? There's stuff that has to happen on it. Right? But back to verse 31 or 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. When you lose your children, you lose who you are. You lose your strength. You lose the thing that makes you powerful. You lose your success, because you can't be a success without a successor. Right? Let's move on though. Let's get to Deuteronomy 28. And let's go to verse 45, 46, somewhere in there, right? Or is it 50? It might be 54. Right? Like all these things, you can just read these things for yourself. So I'm not going to focus on reading every single thing. Matter of fact, we're going to go to Deuteronomy 28, verse 52. Amen. Thank you, Brother Dennis. Right? Deuteronomy 28 and verse 52. Amen. Under construction. Watch this. Deuteronomy 28, verse 52. It says this. It says, and ought towards doing something. Right? This is what's going to happen when you don't listen to the voice of the or the language, the culture of Yahweh Elohim. Right? Check this out. It says, and he shall besiege thee at all thy gates until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustest throughout all the land, and he shall besiege thee and in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which Yahweh thy Elohim hath given thee. So the enemy is going to come what? Into your gates. The gates are what's supposed to keep people out. So you're not going to have proper protection. Sometimes you'll have your gate wide open because you're out of position, right? And you won't be thinking about security for your children, for your women, for your men even. All right? Until the high and fenced walls come down. So then they're going to take the walls down to where you have no protection around you at all. The things that should be protecting you, the things that should be lifted up, the things that should be layered in your life, they're going to be broken down. Wherein thou trustest. So you should have been trusting in this, but because of your lack of trust and lack of observing and lack of doing, you've allowed these things. Because remember, gates and walls and things like that, they have to go through upkeep. And if we don't keep them up, if we don't revisit these things over and over and over again to ensure that they're still ready to go, anything can slip in. It says, and he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land. So all over the land is going to be the same thing, which Yahweh Elohim has given thee. So he gave you the land. He gave you the land, said, I'll be there with you. Said in Jeremiah chapter 3, hey, roll with me. Roll with me. Stop being disobedient. Stop cheating on me, Israel. Make sure that you're in position. Right? Told you that. But verse 53 says, because we're disobedient, it says what? And you shall eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and daughters. Right? Talking about cannibalism. And by the way, not even just physical cannibalism, spiritual cannibalism. People get utility bills and stuff because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. They get them in their children's name. Children become 18, try to go for their first gig. I'm so glad. Like, I grew up with so many children that told me this. I didn't know this. Like, once we got to be, when I was 17 and stuff, and I finally had my own, I had basically, no credit, but I didn't have bad credit because I didn't have parents to put stuff in my name. But I know a lot of people that grew up and went to get their first gig and then said, okay, cool, I'm going to go get this. I'm going to go get that. I'm going to go get my electricity, this and that. And they tell them, oh, no, you can't get this stuff. And they were like, why can't I get electricity in my name? Why can't I get my water in my name? And they say, your credit's bad. And it's because they were raised where their parents were putting that on them, right? Cannibalizing. They didn't even have a chance, right? Didn't even have a choice. You were born into this stuff, right? It's a generational curse, right? And sons and daughters. And Yahweh, I'm sorry. And watch this. So you eat them up, which Yahweh Elohim, he had given them to you, but you mismanaged them. You didn't follow the word, right? So now in the siege and in the straitness, wherewith the enemy shall distress thee. So because of the enemy coming against you, and because of all these things against you, and because of you getting away from the law and getting away from your culture and saying it's not important, and well, we can just all work together, and shouldn't we just all love one another and all these things, because of those things, right now, you're basically in a bad position. Now, verse 54, so that the man is tender among you. Now we focus on the man, right? Now we focus on the man. And this is when the generational curse gets extremely heavy, but brothers, that's why we met with the brothers last night. And we all got on together and we all had conversation with one another. And we talked about what we're going to do as men, and talked about how some things we can do, and made sure that we can encourage one another, and just the encouragement and the joy and the happiness on brothers' faces, and the smiles to seeing, brothers who probably would keep their, matter of fact, some of the brothers have been on a lot of stuff that we've done. I've never seen them actually put their face out there, but because it was just other brothers, they felt they could let their hair down, right? Okay, I see you said it happened to you with your aunt. Yeah. So, but they were able to let themselves down because why? Because we're raised in a place to where we're already cannibalizing our children. We're already messing them over. We're already, having it to where they have no structure, they have no culture, they have no ability to let their vision be with them, and all these different things. And then all of a sudden, then we say, be a man. What is a man? And whose culture is according to? And can I be protected as a man? Because I got to protect everybody else. When does my protection come into play? So because there's none of that that's going on, right? And those who are on the podcast, we thank you for being on. We probably got another 14, 15 minutes or so before you guys are going to, be off. So if you want to join us on IG or Facebook or TikTok or something else, or watch the rest of this later on YouTube, we appreciate you. But, just wanted to give you a heads up. So when you're talking about these things, like the man, he has nothing to protect him as well. Your protector has no protecting, which means he can't really be a protector. If your protector has no protection, he can't really be a protector that well, right? You said building walls and beefing up security, raising the bars to negate its safeguard. Okay, and your mother wasn't enough. She did leave the book. Okay, yeah, and a lot of people get raised and stuff. So watch this, because this stuff has been designed, because of this Willie Lynch syndrome that's there. Right now, we get into Deuteronomy 28 and verse 54. So it says, because of those things, so because of all those things, it's so that the man is what? He is tender among you. The word tender, it basically translates to he is not prepared. He's not prepared. That's basically what tender is saying. When you're going to see this word tender pop up a few times, it's basically telling you that he is not prepared. He is ill prepared for what's coming. Right? It means he's delicate. He's soft. He is weak. He's not prepared. He should be a better husband, but understand the system is set up where he's delicate, he's soft, he's weak, he's not prepared. He should have a culture to be able to make sure it maintains everything. So when you guys have fights and things in your household, it shouldn't be that big a deal. But he's delicate, he's soft, he's not prepared. His father should have been in his heart, but in his life, but his father couldn't be there. He's delicate, he's soft, he's not prepared. And his father may have wanted to be in his life, or even if he wasn't in his life, may have wanted to be a better example, but he couldn't say things to his son like, I love you, and kiss his son on the forehead, and give his son hugs, and let his son sit on his lap, and let his son, play games with his son, and make sure that he couldn't do all those things because he grew up in an environment where his father's father didn't do that, and his father's father's father didn't do that, and his father's 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 father didn't do that, and all that stuff. I know I skipped some, but y'all get the gist, right? Like, he grew that, it was a generational curse, and he wasn't allowed to do it in times of slavery. He wasn't allowed to do it sometimes during times of or didn't have time to during times of sharecropping and things like that. Right? So he's simply continuing, and sometimes he thinks he's doing a better job. Right? As a man thinketh, so is he, right? He thinks he's doing a better job. The sins of the father resident in the sons, right? He swears he's doing a better job, but he doesn't understand he's tender. Matter of fact, hey, my father never said I love you at all. I said I love you one time when you graduated high school. So, I said I love you. I'm doing a better job than my father, right? Like in his mind, he's doing a better job. Because he's not, watch this, he's not basing what he's doing off of righteousness and culture. He's basing it off of, I'm in a culture that says that I'm supposed to be on the bottom and I'm supposed to survive. I'm in a culture that says I'm not supposed to even be involved in my son's life. So forget being a father. Forget being a husband. I'm going to try to be somewhat of a father, right? Like, husband comes before father, right? Self-accountability as a male comes before that. But he's like, well, like, at least I'm not going to be, worried about what his mother does. I'm not going to learn love language. I'm not going to learn how to make sure that we have Bible study as husband and wife and stuff. But, at least I'm in my child's life. And that's become the bar. If you think about it, for a lot of people, the bar has become, be involved in your child's life. I mean, that's nice and everything, but I mean, that's not our standard. That's not our standard. You said Jeremiah chapter 10. You talking about past verse 5? Right? You said I just answered so much for amen. Praise Yah. We're just using the word. Right? People do the bare minimum. Okay, well, I'll kind of be involved. But it's a generational curse. Because we're disobedient. You said sometimes generational curse or gift. The balance of life is unpredictable. Oh, okay. On either side. I guess so, but usually you can kind of predict by what people are doing. Yeah, but I guess I see what you're saying overall. So let's keep on going. So it says, because of those things, because of the way the system's set up, it says that the man is tender among you. He is not prepared. He's soft. He's not ready for these things. And because he's soft and very delicate, he might want to be doing all these things, but because he's soft and very delicate, it says this. It says his eye. So because he hasn't been trained in what it is to be ready, and because he's been told his masculinity is toxic, and because he's been told that he shouldn't be himself, and because he doesn't even know what it is to be himself, because he doesn't even have a language or a voice to even talk to the Most High, and that he was supposed to never change, according to Yahshua himself in Matthew chapter 28 verse 18, when he shouldn't have even changed the most minuscule of measurements of it, or shouldn't have even changed the way it was written, because he doesn't know who he is and has been blocked from him, and people keep telling him that he's evil for trying to be who he is. It says he's tender, and because he's tender, when we keep on reading, it says his eye shall be evil. That means he'll give evil looks toward his brother. Anything that could be a threat to whatever little stuff he can handle, because he's tender, when his brother does anything that makes it look like he could be little or something like that, then it means, or anything that might make his brother look slightly better than him, anything that his brother might do to where it seems like it might be a threat. I'm supposed to be the one that does this. I'm supposed to be the only one at work that does this. I'm supposed to be the only one in the family. I'm known in the family for doing this. Don't come on my turf, right? Don't step on my street. This street, it belongs to us. How you gonna come on our street? It's just a street, and you don't own it anyways. You don't own anything on the street. No, man, this is our street. We sell drugs here. Well, you killing your people, yeah, but at least we have ownership over that. We kill people over here. They're so tender. They're so soft. We think that somebody who pulls out a gun nowadays is hard. We think that somebody will fight you just because you stepped on their shoe is hard. That's not hard. That's weak. That's soft. You unprepared. All it takes is the smallest of things. And a lot of people out here, a lot of men too, but a lot of people out here are so soft that all I got to do is mention Bush or mention Clinton or mention Reagan or mention Obama or mention Biden or mention Trump or mention whomever. I can mention Washington, I can mention Jackson, whatever. All I gotta do is I can mention Republican or Democrat, and people are so soft that they will be stuck on that for the rest of their day. Won't even be able to take care of their family correctly because they're gonna have to argue with somebody for an hour because somebody mentioned something. That's how tender it has become. Like being tender-headed, somebody trying to do your hair, right? And if I was sitting here and I was doing the stuff, whatever, if I do stuff with my son the same way I do it with mine, I'm more mature and I'm able to deal with it, right? So if I have to do something that would cause me some pain to my scalp, I can handle it more, right? But the stuff for him, he's freaking out, moving all over the place still, because he's still tender. He's not ready for all that yet. He needs to go through the same thing, but he can't handle it yet. So when he has to go through the same thing I go through, it's a whole ordeal. Like, you gotta make sure the hair is wet, and make sure that the contour is in there, and make sure that it's seated the right way, and make sure it's conditioned enough, and make sure that he's in the right place. Maybe you got to give him something to watch so that he's distracted from what's going on. Because that's so you can do the same thing that as a grown man I would just come do real quick and keep it moving. He can't do that. Right? Because he's tender. And we have a lot of men that are immature because of a system that's set up. But really the only reason the system could be set up in the first place is because our forefathers didn't want to observe and do. If you want to break the system, you have to be who you're called to be according to your culture. That's the only way. That's what civilization is. The reason why they call somebody uncivilized, and once again to those that are on the podcast, we probably got about 5 minutes left or so before it's going to shut down on us. So thank you for being on again. You can switch over to IG, you can switch over to Facebook, you can watch the rest later on YouTube, or you can switch over to TikTok. Thank you for being on. So the reason why that stuff happened is because we stopped obeying the law in the first place. If you want this to happen, Willie Lynch said the only anomaly, he said not just he studied this, but he said he had experts he hired that helped him to be able to help come up with this chaotic system, right? That has been employed. Upon us, that's really been deployed over you, right, towards you. And he said the thing is that if husbands ever go back to being husbands and wives ever go back to being wives, then it'll mess up civilization. The uncivilized black person in this system is supposed to be a person that goes by his civilization. The second that you go by your civilization, you are uncivilized in theirs. And the reason why they call you uncivilized, because anything that's uncivilized breaks down society. All right, did you catch that? Anything that is uncivilized, it breaks down society. So if it's uncivilized, it will break down somebody else's civilization. And we're living in something uncivilized. It's not ours. And it keeps breaking down our civilization. We live in uncivilization. It's not our civilization. The only way that we can actually be civilized in their civilization is to be uncivilized in ours. Out of Elohim's order. Right? It's educated. Right? So we have to believe that giving up ourselves is righteousness, because if we don't, then we can't be considered righteous in this civilization. You have to put yourself away. This is what you're taught. Man, don't worry. When we think it's not about you, what we actually think when we hear that in our head, I'm not saying you can't say it's not about you, but what I'm telling you is what most people hear in their head when they hear it's not about you is they hear to themselves, oh, okay, it's not about me, so put my civilization to the side. Put my hair to the side. Put my pride to the side, put my sense of self to the side, because my family's depending on me. And so I need to go and work this 9 to 5 and listen to people tell me all kinds of bad stuff about myself and cut my hair off and do all this. I need to do that, because if I don't do that, my family won't survive. And and even though I could find a place to still work that would accept me, even though I could start my own business, even though I could get with people that are like-minded, even though I could do those things, even though I could have faith, right? That I once was young and now I'm old, and I've never seen the righteous forsaken nor his seed begging bread. Look, I've been homeless multiple times in my life, and I've never once starved to death, right? Like, but you get in that situation, you're like, oh man, I don't know how I'm gonna make it. Like, and you know what? Like, I've made it, so I don't doubt that my family will be taken care of. I don't doubt that I have brothers and sisters that love me enough to help me if I need it. I don't doubt that the Most High owns the cattle. You know, my daddy, he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. I don't doubt these things, right? That's being faithful and obedient. But because we're not obedient, we end up being tender. And it says that we get so tender that our brothers look evil towards one another. Then, not only is that bad enough, though, right? Not only is that bad enough, amen, you made it, right? We talked about that before. You haven't gone through one thing in your life that you haven't survived. Anybody who hasn't survived what they've gone through in their life, raise your hand and let me know, right? You know, it doesn't make sense, but we do this thing. I'm not going to make it. I made it through everything else, but I'm not going to make it. If anything, the one time you finally do die is like the extreme outlier. Even with death, that's an extreme outlier, right? Even death is an extreme outlier, right? Even your hair is your identity, right? You said that's exactly what happens. People fold because of fear. You take their eyes off the Most High, right? And just like Peter did, you sink. Once again, to those that are on the podcast, thank you for being on. I think we got about a minute left. We appreciate you. Feel free to jump on to any of the other places that we are on live, or if you want to watch the stuff later on for the recording. So going back to the man. So he's tender. He's very delicate. His eye is evil towards his brother. The next it says, and it's toward the wife of his bosom. So it's evil towards his wife as well. Now we get into a situation because he feels his wife doesn't understand him. You said you even died and came back. There you go. Right? But now his eye is evil towards his wife because his eye is evil towards his brother. If he can't love himself as a man, that he can't love his wife, because you can only love your wife as you love yourself. Did you catch that? That's the curses that we have to undo, right? And it starts with civilization. Who are you? Right? You can't love your wife if you don't love yourself. If you can't look at your brother, when you look, see, watch this. People don't get this. When I look at my brother, I look at myself. I'm looking in the mirror. So if my brother's out there messed up, and I won't do anything for him while he's out there messed up, it means that I won't do anything for self. I don't love myself, which means that if I wouldn't do anything for myself, then how am I going to do something for my wife? Because my wife and I are supposed to become one. You see the culture that's there? You see the culture that's there? You said that's why your father's broke. Well, prayerfully he gets things better. Love is the answer. Well, love is the answer, but love is an action. In Hebrew, achaba is the actions of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Action. Love is action. It's always when people say it's all about love. His only commandment was to love. Yeah, love is an action. So what are your actions? Right? People don't like to use the term work, but then they use the term love. Love is action. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying in general, right? So we have to think about these things. We have to be real. We have to be honest. A lot of people are tender. They're super tender. They're not prepared to go through these things. And since they're not prepared, they're going through a lot of issues, right? Now watch this. So now, right? So he's tender. He's not prepared. He's not protected. He doesn't feel loved. His eye is evil towards his brother, which means it's evil towards himself. His eye is evil towards his wife. Now, his wife of his own bosom. He really cares. He wants it to work, but he's having an issue. Right? Yeah, a verb being action, right? Love is a verb. Amen. So, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. It's saying because we're so out of sorts that our eye is first evil towards our brother, which means it's evil towards ourselves. Then it's evil towards our wives, which means it's evil towards ourselves. And then it's evil towards his children. Why? Because it's evil towards himself. And so at some point, he even starts, I'm not saying every guy, right? But I'm just saying when a system's in place where something systemic is happening like that, you begin to start making crazy decisions. You start saying to yourself, maybe I just need to go ahead and leave my children, be. Maybe I'm not a good enough father for them anyways. Maybe if I could just not have the responsibility of that and get myself together, then I can come back some years later. Right? It starts with the brothers. That's why we talked last night. Amen. That's a great question right there. That's a bar right there, Austin, right? How can you become one with the one you hate? Right? Because you got to become one with yourself, even when you're single. A lot of people don't even know how to do that. Then you're trying to become married to somebody else. Right? So because of all these things, it says, so that he will not give any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat. Once again, so it's going to be cannibalization. He's going to get to this place to where he's going to mess them up. Because he's unprepared. He's going to mess them up. Because he hath nothing left him in the siege. Because of all the attack that came against him, he has nothing left. And in the straightness, right? People coming straight at him and stuff like that. Wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates. He's been attacked from the time he was born and even before he was born because it's generational curses. He was attacked. He's not going to know anything to do. He gets into a place where it's survival mode and he's just doing things to make sure that he can get along. Now, because the man is because society is messed up, and because we don't protect our men, and because we don't have a culture that they can go by, and because we don't live with each other, and because we don't check on each other, because we won't even call one another, or call one another, depending on how you go, because we won't do these things, what happens next after that? What happens next is now the woman is messed up and tender as well. Because verse 56 says, thine tender and delicate women among you. So the society is tender, it is jacked up. That's the man now is tender, it is jacked up. Which means now what happens? The woman is tender and delicate. Now she should be more delicate, but she's tender and delicate. Bad combination. Right? You can be delicate and not tender. Right? You can be delicate but still prepared. But when you're unprepared and you're delicate and you don't have somebody in position who's supposed to protect you, right? Hashtag protect black women and all that stuff, right? When you don't have the protection, now we in bad shape. Because verse 56, it says, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for her delicateness and tenderness. In other words, we're not even talking about, I was talking about tender-headed before. Now, because of her being in the position she's in, she doesn't really move that well, because every time her foot hits the ground, I don't know if you've ever seen somebody with a condition like this, but it's hard for them to walk, or they have so many things on their feet that it's hard for them to walk. It hurts. Have you ever had like, I don't know if anybody, I've never experienced this personally, but I've seen it where somebody might have like a boil on the bottom of their foot or something, and they would love to take a step, but they can't take a step. They love to go to the beach, but they can't go on the sand. They love to be able to go to the pool, right? But they can't go in the pool. Matter of fact, they can't even put their feet in the ground, even in the pool, right? They love to be able to walk around the house, but can't walk around the house because it's tender. Right? Because they don't have what they need, they become so tender and delicate that they would not adventure. They won't go on an adventure. They won't leave their surroundings. They won't go past what's holding them down. They won't even adventure their feet. It says she won't adventure her feet, or I'm sorry, she will not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness. Next it says, her eye shall be evil as well. Toward what? Toward the husband of her bosom. The husband that's there with her, or even the husband that should have been there. Right? Come on, somebody. She should have had this husband. Or her husband should, like women say, I need you to be a man. I need you to be a husband, right? She's speaking. She has an evil eye towards what she feels she should have gotten, because there's a culture that's missing. And so she knows that her husband's not giving her something, but she don't even really know what he's not giving, because she doesn't know the culture. She knows she should be submitting to something, but she ain't going to submit to whatever, because right now it's a mess. And so she's not willing to submit at all. There's something missing. Right? We use this language with each other all the time. You need to get it together. If you was a real man, you won't be just like your daddy, blah, blah. She's talking about generational curse, but rather than encouraging him to stop the generational curse, she's actually causing him to continue the generational curse. She doesn't know, but she's hurt. She's delicate. She's tender. She can't even move. She can't do what she needs to do. She's trying to hang in there. She's trying to support black men, even though black men won't support her, all these things. She's trying to hang in there, but eventually it gets to a place to where she's burned out too. So now her eye is evil towards the husband of her bosom, the one who she really has high regard for. She loves, she carries him in her heart, but eventually something else wins out, and she's dealing with it. And now because she's dealing with it, what happens next? It says, because she's dealing with that, and it's become evil towards her own bosom, which means it's become evil towards her own self. Guess what? Her eye will be evil towards. Even though she'll say, I love you, even though she'll say she's hugging him and this and that or whatever, understand, now her eye will become evil towards her son and her daughter. Remember Willie Lynch syndrome, he said, he said, hey, when we get these slaves in, we're going to look for the one who doesn't fit into society the most, the one who is restless, the one who can't fit in, and the one who's the strongest, the one who represents the most strength. He said, we're going to take that slave, that male slave, and we're going to beat him up. We're going to tar and feather him. That means we're cooking him and then putting feathers on him, right? While we're doing that, to make him a chicken. A chicken means that he's a coward, even though he's not a coward, but he can't fight. We're going to bring him in front of everybody. We're going to spread his legs wide open so you can see his seed, his genitalia, right? And then we're going to to show you that we're in control of everything, including your seed. We're going to then set him on fire after tying him to 2 horses and let the horses pull his legs apart in front of everybody. It says, while doing that, we're also going to get to a point to where we say, okay, forget just doing those things. Now we want to take it to, we're going to not only pull apart the horse, right? Pulling apart the horse, we're going to whip all the other men in front. This is what Willard said, 1712. We're going to whip all the other men, but not kill them. We're just going to whip them to the point of death. And when we stripped the guy naked, the first guy naked that we did all the stuff to, that we ripped apart, we did it in front of the other men, right? Then we did it in front of the women and the children as well. And we're going to have all this happen in front of women and children. The women and children are going to watch this, and so that the women recognize that their man is no longer their protector, and therefore she will become independent. This is where Miss Independent comes from. This is the first place Miss Independent comes from. We think it's this new phase and men just want this woman to be independent. No, he said we want our women. He said we want their women, and they didn't even call them women. They called them N-word females, right? And he said we want these women to be what? We want these women to be women that are frozen in fear, that say that they're independent, and they will begin to raise, out of fear of what we did, they'll raise their men to be afraid and tender and scared, and they'll raise their girls to be what? They'll raise their girls to be independent and to be in the position of men, and they'll continue to do that on their own over and over again, and they won't look to themselves, nor to their own Elohim, nor to Yahweh, nor to their own tribalism, etc. They will look towards what we tell them to look towards. That's what it says. That's Willie Lynch syndrome, right? Well, guess what? This is what's going on in Deuteronomy 28. Right? We're speaking about the same thing. We're having the same discussion. Same mentality, right? Okay. So it says that she's going to have an evil eye towards her son and her daughter. Verse 57, it says, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet. So even her newborn. She'll love them, but she's going to understand, she's got to train them the wrong way. She has to have some kind of disdain. She has to live in disdain. She has to know that, think about what it is as a parent, right? I have to teach my children about police and what police do. I have to teach my children about police, even without, even though I don't care about the police. I don't really worry about the police, but I have to have them understand that the very things that they say are supposed to protect them, I got to train them different. I have to train them in this society, that this society looks at them as in a negative light, while at the same time trying to teach them positivity. Just that in and of itself, that's a curse to have to be in something like that. That's why we need to keep developing this stuff and working towards our own land and all these different things, right? That's why we have a necessity for that. That's why we're driven towards that. If we're driven towards anything, we travel. But if we're driven towards anything, we're driven towards that. Because it doesn't make sense that I should have to teach my children that. It doesn't make sense that there's some of these babies out here. I'm not going to mention names of these babies, but, we got some of these 2-year-olds out here and 7-year-olds and 15-year-olds and 20-year-olds. And y'all know who I'm talking about probably as far as parents, because I talk to some of you more than others. But we got some of these babies out here. We should be in a position where they don't have to learn that and think about that all the time. You said come to Kenya. We do some work in Kenya. Matter of fact, we're behind in some things financially that normally we would be doing at this time. But yeah, Kenya is something that eventually, we're looking at getting land here first in the United States of America, but definitely Ghana and Kenya would be a couple places because we already do stuff over there. And once you have the land over there, you actually own it. You don't have to worry about going through a lot of the stuff we're going to have to go over here just to make sure nobody can take it over there. Once you own it, it's yours. You do whatever you feel like it. So, we're probably, once we get some stuff over there, we'll probably have people over there who will live with us. And when we go back and forth, they're going to be the ones to make sure they help to make sure that the land is being taken care of. Once again, and toward her young one that cometh from between her feet, and toward her children, which she shall bear, for she shall eat them. That's talking about, once again, cannibalization, but in a spiritual manner or in a psychological manner, so to speak, her own children, before they even have a chance to live, they're being messed over, for want of all things secretly in the siege and straitness, wherewith the enemy shall distress in thy gate. Same thing is said about the man. Verse 58 then says, if thou wilt not observe. So there it is again. What's our way out of this? You got to observe what's going on and observe the commandments and observe what's going on, but also not just observe, start doing. Faith without works. A lot of people observe. They say, I got the faith for this and this and this, but what are you doing? And then anybody calls you out on doing, people get a problem. Well, it's not by works. Nobody's saying it's blown by works, but you got to do something at some point, right? Like the reason why I'm out here teaching the way that I'm teaching and giving a lot of this stuff away. I could be trying to do what a lot of people do, which is, hey, I'm not giving this to you unless you pay. You better come to my Patreon if you want to go deep into some of this stuff. No, we answer these questions right here. Why? Because we're doing. We understand that it's one thing for you to keep saying faith, 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 and then we never give you the result. That's like when you go to those conferences and people say, we're going to teach you how to make money, and we're going to teach you how to teach other people, and we're going to teach you. And a lot of people don't get stuff out of it, but they spend thousands and thousands, and then they say, you go to this conference for free, but then they say, if you want the next conference, you got to pay $50-something. You go to that conference, $50-something. They say, okay, if you really want it, then you're going to pay $1,000-something for it. You go to the next one, but if you really want it, now you got to pay $5,000. And they might eventually, you might pay enough money where you break in to where somebody better give you something for all that money you've given. The reality, though, is that a lot of people aren't trying to give you much, right? Because they're trying to give you the observing thing, because they know most people just want to observe. And people will pay a lot of money to observe, but a lot of people won't pay money to do, or won't pay their actions to do. Faith without works is dead. Observing without doing is dead. Verse 58, if thou wilt not observe. So if you want to observe, to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, right, or in this on the scroll, and really these scrolls at this point, right, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name, Yahweh Elohim. Do you even see that? Even the name. What does the word name mean, by the way? Remember, the word name in Hebrew is Shem. So when people say we're the people of Shem, they're saying we're the people of the name. The word name also means authority. So when you talk about Shem, you got to talk about authority. You can't talk about authority without coming through Shem. I'm just giving you word. This is word, right? Like people don't know this word, so we're off. But this is just word, right? And you can't talk about authority without talking about name. If you're talking about name, you're talking about Shem. If you're talking about Shem, you're talking about me. Okay? So it says that you have to observe the Shem. And what is the Shem? That it's Yahweh Elohim. Even the name, the authority, it speaks to culture. You think differently in culture when you know what the name, the Shem, actually is. Right? You gotta be aware of this stuff. I'm sorry, Shaquetta, you said is getting. I don't know if it's Shakita or Shaquetta. I'm assuming it's Shaquetta. So if I'm mispronouncing it, I apologize. It says, is getting married part of obeying? If you're called to marriage, you need to be obedient to the law of marriage and the culture of marriage. Marriage means sex in our culture. So when somebody's betrothed in our culture, that's when you get a license. You get a license to get betrothed. But marriage is when you have sex. And in order to be qualified for sex or for marriage, you should already be pre-qualified as a husband or be pre-qualified as a wife. So if you're not a husband already, if you don't know what being a husband is, then don't try to get married. If you don't know what being a wife is, don't try to get married. If you don't know what both are, don't try to get married, because you'll be illegally partaking in sex. You'll be committing fornication, even if somebody else in their culture gives you a piece of paper, because in their culture, they don't say you have to be qualified at all. In order to be qualified, you just walk, you just come in, maybe pay $10, something like that, and then pay another, whatever it costs for your certificate, and then call it a day. But those same people wouldn't give you license to drive. I think you should travel instead of driving, but nevertheless, those people wouldn't give you license to drive. Right? Those people wouldn't give you license to drive if you didn't know how to drive already and you didn't go through training. Those people wouldn't give you license to do somebody's hair. Those people wouldn't give you license to do a tattoo. But in our society, or not in our society, in somebody else's culture that we've unfortunately lived in for a very long time, what happens with us is that more people have a faith in what it shows is we have more faith in being behind the wheel of a vehicle. We have more faith in, or put it like this, we put more stock in because we put more training in. So we put more stock in being behind the wheel of a vehicle, doing somebody's hair, doing somebody's nails, getting the tattoo than we do in marriage, because we would say before getting anything else done, you better get some training done. But two people get ready to walk down the aisle, they say, shoot, go ahead, you can go to Vegas, you can just show up at the courthouse, you can tell us you're coming next week, and if y'all can just stay committed to it, or you can elope, you can do whatever. You can live together without even being righteous or whatever, but live together 7 years and we'll just go ahead and say you're married. Common law marriage. Right? Like, and even though they won't teach you that sex is marriage, because you can get married to somebody today, wake up next to that person the next day and realize, oh man, I don't know what I was doing. Why did we're in Vegas? Oh wow. And stay with that person but not have sex with them for 3 months, and then you say, you know what, I don't want this to work. You go to the in front of the judge and you say, Judge, I want my husband and I, we haven't had sex yet, and I don't think I'll ever want to have sex with them. We eloped, and I don't know who this person is. We tried to see if we could make it work because we must have seen something in each other, but it just didn't work. The judge would say, oh, okay, so you haven't had sex? No, we haven't had sex. The judge annuls the marriage, because if it hasn't been consummated, it doesn't even count. So you got to look at the culture. Culturally speaking, right? But there's a lot more in it. That's why we have marriage classes. Next one for us isn't going to come up, probably till April. But, that's why we even do marriage classes. Is it Kenya, Johannesburg? Johannesburg? Isn't Johannesburg South Africa? Or is that what you're saying? Either Kenya or South Africa. Okay. Faith and healing, but some people won't eat correctly. Yeah. You got to eat correctly. Some people say, I'm healthy. This year is my year. This year is the year that I'm going to go to the beach and I'm going to be throwing on that bikini, girl. You ain't going to recognize me. It's like, okay, what you eating? Even before you go to the gym don't matter as much. You think about what goes on the outside of you that's going to establish some things on the inside. The inside is going to establish the outside. He said they turned everything into a hoax. Hey, Vanessa, how you doing? Of course. Unfortunately, there's no training before marriage. Anyone can tie the knot. Yep. Where's the t-shirt? I don't know if we have anything past the draft. We put it on here. I showed it to you guys. I can show you the draft again. I don't have a picture of the new one, but we do have the t-shirt. I guess I can see about, because we'll be on again at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time. So I guess I can see about having something for, for you guys to be able to look at and be able, if you want to get one of your own, feel free. I'll put up the, at the end, we're getting ready to take our leave anyway. So I'll put it up soon where you guys can look at it again. We put it up, but we just didn't have the hashtag FindKofi added to it yet. And it's not on the site yet, but we can make that happen. By the end of the day, or at least it might already be on the site. In all honesty, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that we're doing. My wife takes care of a lot of things too. It's my pleasure, Shaquetta. That marriage is more than a paper. Blessed to have observed my parents live till death do in part. Amen. So it's cultural, right? Even going to let me hit just a couple more things in this real quick, right? So verse 59 says, if you don't obey Yahweh Elohim in that glorious and fearful name, remember that name, that word glory, by the way, glory means weight, heaviness, seriousness, right? It should leave an imprint on you. I should be able to see the glory of the Most High on you because you obey, right? So verse 59 says, if you don't listen to it, and if you don't and you don't fear or respect the glorious and fearful name Yahweh Elohim, it says, then Yahweh will make thy plagues wonderful. The plagues that are going to happen. Have you ever thought about the fact that other people who are outside of our culture, outside of our society, they look at us and they go, man, it's a wonder the stuff they go through. This is Bible, right? Like, read your Bible, it'll bless you, right? So he'll make the plagues wonderful. People will go, wow, did you know? Did you know? Did you know black people were going through this? You hear people say stuff like that. Like, I'm so shocked. People will apologize. And it's like, how did you not see this? Sometimes they did see it, but sometimes because culture is they're of another culture, their culture says, man, don't listen to that. But now you got cell phones, so now it's not just newspapers and magazines and people talking about it on the news and, seeing movies and stuff where it is. Now it's like stuff, but people are like Yeah, in astonishment. Like, people are like, wow. Like, this is happening this much, this often. And even though people see it happen this often, there's a culture that says don't believe them because of the color of their skin. So they'll still say that we're not looking at things correct, right? But then keep on going. So it says, the Lord make that place, or Yahweh will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, that's your children, even great plagues. So even the ones that make other people in amazement, you haven't even seen anything yet. A long continuance. Keep on going for a long time, and sore sickness, and of long continuance. Moreover, he will bring all the diseases of Kemet. So all the things that you thought you escaped from when you went unto Kemet, which thou was afraid of, and shall cleave unto thee. Also every sickness and every plague, which is not written in the book of this law, because if you follow the law, you'll be protected from sickness. Not just because of a spiritual manner, which is a great part of it, but also because of a physical thing. If you're not eating certain things, you can't get sick from certain things. Right? So also every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, then will Yahweh bring upon thee until thou be destroyed. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were the stars of the heaven, for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of Yahweh Elohim. We should be stronger, right? Like, think about the disobedience of abortion. And how many more of us there should be. And how we allowed somebody like Margaret Sanger and others before her who were doing it to the slave women. And now we just accept what they did to the slave women. We take our own women and our own daughters there to get these abortions themselves. We should have been further. It's not about somebody else is always doing to you. It's about that we have not taken time to separate ourselves. Right? You said these days you need discernment, a word from Yashvai, and counseling before marriage. Most definitely. Right? Verse 63. And it shall come to pass that as Yahweh rejoiced over you to do greatness and to multiply you, so Yahweh will rejoice over you and allow your destruction and to bring you to naught. And ye shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. And Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods. Now you serving gods, because you never had gods. You had Elohim. You had Yahweh Elohim. Now you shall serve other gods. You've been taken other places. You're outside of your culture, and because you decided to be disobedient, or because your forefathers. By the way, when your forefathers did it, you did it, because you're one and the same. You're the same people. It's eternal. Right? So because this is what happened, because you did it, in essence, because your forefathers did it, you can undo it because your forefathers had the ability to undo it too. All right. So you shall be scattered from one end of the earth to the other, and there you shall serve other gods, which neither thou or thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Right? Even wood and stone. All somebody got to do is carve. Carve Jesus instead of Yashvai. Carve a white Jesus. Carve a Buddha. Carve whatever, and you will worship it. You will pray over it. You'll put some rosary beads on it. Start rubbing them together. I've seen women. I've seen grown black women. I've seen women in their 50s and 60s that are on their knees, messing their knees up, walking around basilicas on their knees, or crawling on their knees, putting their hands in the air like this, and crying in front of as many white saints that would listen, hoping that their situation would get corrected. That's not your culture. I'm telling you not what I've heard. I'm telling you what I've witnessed with my eye looking. And I'm not talking about even another country. I'm talking about in Washington, D.C., the capital. National Basilica. Right? With 100 plus different Marys. They don't just have one Mary. They have a Mary for each culture. So every culture can have their own Mary that they say that Christ came out of. And so everybody can go pray to their own Mary, their own person. Each culture has a different woman that's supposed to be their Miriam, their Mary that Yahshua or that Christ came out of. And you can go worship and pray to her and pray to the Christ child at the same time. Scattered. Taking a piece of you and so scattered you don't even know what's going on. All they got to do is carve some wood and some stone. Verse 65, and among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but Yahweh shall give thee there a trembling heart. You're going to be afraid and failing of eyes. You're not going to be able to see what you need to see the way you're supposed to, and sorrow of mind, always worried and sorry and sorrowful. Verse 66 says, and thy life, so this is your personal life, shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. Won't even be assured. Now, once again, if you're in the blessings, then look, I once was young, and now I'm old, but I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor their seed begging bread. But when you're in the opposite place, oh man, you don't even know if you're gonna make it. Right? You're not even gonna know if you make it. Right? Yeah, even though Mary didn't go to the cross for anybody, right? Now, verse 67, in the morning, which is the rising, in the rising thou shalt say, would Elohim it were even, and at evening, you shall say, would Elohim it were the rising. In other words, man, is when you get up, oh, I can't wait for the day to be over. When the day is over, you like, oh man, I can't wait for tomorrow to start. Right? How many people do that? For the fear of thine heart, wherewith thou shalt fear, and for thy sight of thine eyes thou shalt see. Verse 68, which is what the person mentioned all the way at the beginning, it was trying to say that I was saying that, slavery is something that was necessary for our people, because that's a place where people go. The last verse, it says what? And Adon, or and Yahweh, or and the Lord shall bring thee into Kemet again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. So he's going to bring you into Kemet, or into slavery, into bondage, into falsehood, right? Again. He's going to bring you into that place again, this time by ships, by way thereof I speak unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwoman, and no man shall buy you. All that comes from what, though? Deuteronomy 28 verse 15, if you don't listen to your culture, to the law. But if you listen, Deuteronomy 28 verses 1 and 2, you'll have all these things. So let's end on a positive note, because it's time for us to take our leave. But let's end on a positive note. I'm just going to read verses 1 through 15, and then I'm done. I'm done. After that, we're just going to sign out. Right? So I'm just going to read verses 1 through 15. You guys ready? Here we go. We're just going to read verses 1 through 15. Deuteronomy 28 verses 1 through 15. Let's stop. Let's end this the way that we should. Right? And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahweh Elohim, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that Yahweh Elohim will set thee on high above all nations of Aretz, or the earth, and all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of Yahweh Elohim. Blessed shalt thou be in the city, and blessed shalt thou be in the field. You can go ahead and seed this stuff, right? And blessed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy ground, and the fruit of thy cattle, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep. That's plural. Blessed shall be thy basket and thy store. Blessed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and blessed shalt thou be when thou goest out. Yahweh, the Lord, Adon, shall cause thine enemies that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face. They shall come out against thee one way, and flee before thee 7 ways. Yahweh shall command the blessing upon thee in thy storehouses, and in all that thou settest thy hand unto. And he shall bless thee in the land which Yahweh Elohim giveth thee. Yahweh shall establish thee an holy people unto himself, as he has sworn unto thee, if thou shalt keep the commandments of Yahweh Elohim and walk in his ways. And all people of the earth shall see that thou art called by the authority, by the name, by the Shem of Yahweh. And they shall be afraid of thee, and Yahweh shall make thee plenteous in greatness or in goods, in the fruit of thy body, in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy ground, and the land where which Yahweh swear unto thy fathers give thee. Yahweh shall open unto thee his great treasure, the heaven, to give the rain unto the land in his season, and to bless all the work of thine hands. And thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow. So not just the lender, but you shall lend to many nations, and shalt not borrow. Verse 13, and Yahweh shall make thee the head, and not the tail, and thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath. If that thou hearken unto the commandments of Yahweh Elohim. So you got to hearken, you got to listen, you have to listen to the voice, the language, right? The phone, the language of Yahweh Elohim, which I command thee this day to observe towards doing them, and that you shall not go aside from any of the words which I command thee this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other gods to serve them. That's it. We're going to end right there. Thank you for being on. Somebody asked about it, so we're going to make sure we show the shirt. I still just got the draft, though. I don't have the actual shirt up yet, but real quick. So you got the shirt right there. Put some respect on my shim. Gonna have a little hashtag FindKofi that's gonna be kind of off some to the corner, and then we'll have that for you guys. I might already be up. I had to ask my wife. I'm not sure. So hopefully that'll be something that you guys can go ahead and be part of and partake in if you like. And we'll talk about the donations and stuff for that at a later time. And of course, get your sizes and all that stuff to make sure it can be sent to you, etc. Also, too, I want to, speaking of my wife, well, first of all, once again, we always give honor to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. And we're thankful and grateful to him for each and every one of you and for this word that we got today. And we also want to make sure that we take time out to remind you that we want you to not just have heard this word. We want you to pray about it, to meditate on it, and to make sure you start doing it, right? Don't just be somebody up. I've heard of this and that or whatever. You need to start ensuring that you're doing what the word of Yah says. So we praise Yah for that. We praise Yah for my wife, the most honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. We're thankful and grateful for her. Once again, you can check her out at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. You can follow her on TikTok, YouTube, and her website. And she's a herbalist, a healer, a chemist, and a biologist by degree, by the way, for those who need that. So we're thankful for her and all that she does and provides. Oh, thanks, babe. I didn't know you were on. Right? So thankful and grateful for her for being on and doing all the stuff that she does behind the scenes. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can text us at this number, 410-714-5078. Right? What's that? 410-714-5078. Llámame. You can call me. Text us at that number. We also have a 202 number that if you are looking for links or different things from us, that'll be coming from that. That's 202-599-7312. Again, that's 202-599-7312. Again, I say 202-599-7312. Last time, that's 202-599-7312. You can also go to Kofi-Ofori.com. That's Kofi-Ofori.com. If you'd like to be able to bless us with things donation-wise, or learn about Yah's Land Project 83, or if you'd like to be able to help us with donations coming up for the coat drive, we have another one coming up January 8th. Even and especially if you live on the East Coast somewhere, we probably can actually, if you want to give us a donation, depending on where you are and what time frame you're willing to work with us on, can possibly, get a small donation here or there, depending on when it is. And what day it is or whatever, but we appreciate you all for being with us. Thank you so much for listening in. This has been part 18 of our Having Been Led as We Believe series, We're on every day, 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern New York time. We're on every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday evening at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time. We also have the Kofi Ofori podcast where you can check out stuff. We have our website, Kofi-Ofori.com, Kofi-Ofori.com. We have our YouTube channel, hashtag FindKofi, hashtag FindKofi. You can actually look for us on all platforms or just Google us at hashtag FindKofi, and we'll pop up for you there. We're thankful and grateful for each and every one of you. Continue to support in all ways you can. Thank you for your time, your talent, your effort, your energy, and yes, even those who give finances. We do donations if you'd like to find out different ways. Some of it's on the screen now. Some of it you can just look up our look at the page, and when you look up our page, you'll see in the description box. We also have access through Zelle, PayPal, Cash App, and I skipped something. Is it Apple Pay? I think I skipped that one. And then, and of course, if you want to do checks or something like that, but let us know what it's for. Go to the website, call us, check out what we're doing. Make sure that something that you feel is something you want to give to, because we don't receive payments for anything, including classes. We receive donation, and so we want to make sure that you're aware of what it is, what's going to, and all that great stuff. Also, too, please, ma'am, please, sir, those who are interested in classes, we've been talking to a lot of people about classes, which classes they want to take and all that. They're going to start the week of January 31st, the next set of classes. And that's going to be, Mondays are going to be Hebrew characters. Tuesdays are going to be basic Hebrew. Wednesdays are going to be Wednesday is going to be Sovereignty 1 and Sovereignty 2. Thursdays are going to be Natural Medicine 2. Fridays are going to be basic French. Saturdays are going to be cryptocurrency. So if you'd like to learn about any of those things, feel free. Also we have Green Dot as well. For those of you who like Green Dot, we had a couple people ask us to do Green Dot, and then we haven't really gotten anything through Green Dot. But if you want to participate in Green Dot or whatever, feel free. If not, we might stop taking stuff through there because we haven't really had any usage of it, and we kind of have to pay for that service the way that we have it set up. But thank you all for being on. I really appreciate you all. We thank you so much. We appreciate the king and queen in each and every one of you. Even if you are not living inside of that kingdom or queendom yet, we appreciate the potential king and queen in each and every one of you. Don't forget, Patreon is a thing now. You can look us up. I got to double check the page name, but I think we're going to change it to hashtag FindKofi just to make sure that it's uniform. But that's only $5 a month. You'll be able to get stuff on there that you're not going to get from anywhere else. We're looking at trying to give you at least 5 minutes a day of message that you won't find anywhere else, so that's 5 minutes a day, every day during the month. $5, that's a small price to pay for that, and it helps with donations. It helps for you, so even if you feel like you can't give this or give that, if you can do $5 a month, that's a bare minimum thing or whatever, that helps us to be able to help people around the world. So we'll start having more information on there and actually putting some of our stuff directly on there as well, so it'll be easy for you guys to see some of this stuff. We'll put some pictures on there from time to time too, so you can see things that have a little more in-depth, I guess, stuff with us, and feel like you can know a little more about myself personally and things of that nature. But thank you guys for being on once again. We appreciate all of you, and I'm gonna get ready for my day. Hopefully you guys have a chance to do the same. We appreciate you all for being on, and thank you so much. Continue to do great things, and don't forget December 31st. So that's tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow evening, December 31st. We are going to have our watch night service. That's going to be at 10:30 p.m. So if you need the link, let us know, and we'll make sure we have that link for you. Once again, to all the brothers that came out, we appreciate you. Had an excellent time with you, and thank you. We'll be using that same link next time whenever we do the one next month. And ladies, we look forward to you guys starting some stuff down the road. I might be a participant at the first one briefly, just to kind of say hello and say what things are about, and then get out you guys' way. As a pastor, I kind of have to be involved in all sides, but I'm thankful and grateful for what my wife is going to be able to do with you guys and for our children. We've been talking about the babies for a while. We try to do some stuff for the babies even recently. We want to do this stuff for our children, our teenagers, our young children, our young adults, even whatever. We might have to at some point start talking to people in different age groups, but at the end of the day, we want to do some stuff for them too. So when we start putting this stuff together, we need you guys to be present. We don't mind putting that work in, but we got to have some people showing up. So, we tried to do some stuff recently, and we didn't really have the child participation that, for the people that we even said we were going to try and do that for. So please, man, please, sir, let's get dedicated. Let's do this stuff. I know there's only today and tomorrow left, but it's still our year of pursuit. We're pursuing the promises of the Most High. Remember the hashtag finish strong in this year of pursuit. And we look forward to seeing all the blessings that are going to come and overtake thee. Thank you so much on all platforms. We appreciate you. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives, one mind at a time, by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken, until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. It'll be at 10:30 p.m. That's when we're going to start, 10:30 p.m. Remember, by the way, too, 10:30 p.m., if you want to say something as far as a quick testimony or something you're proclaiming over next year, we're asking 30 seconds to a minute. I'm going to have some music that's going to be playing when you start getting close to your, or when you go over that minute. If you go over that minute too long, I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm going to have to kind of say, hey, thank you very much. We appreciate it, but we're going to have to move on, because we have a limited amount of time, and we do have a word that we have to make sure that we get in there, and we need to make sure we're praying into the new year. All right. So thank you so much for everybody being on. We appreciate you. We appreciate the King, Queen, and each and every one of you. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, aka the Shadow Band One, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we're always changing lives one mind at a time, by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken, until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Peace.